Chapter 281, Demonkin. The auction proceeded with the audience feeling a mixture of emotions. Some felt nervous because of the barbarian's appearance, but others excitedly joined in on the fun. 3 more slaves followed after the girl from the Black Eagle tribe was put up for bidding. The next one after that was another barbarian, but this time, it was from another tribe. It was a red-haired barbarian with a muscular physique. To prevent him from escaping, his limbs were tied with special chains. As soon as he was revealed to the audience, everyone gasped in shock. This was because this barbarian was an elite knight. Despicable humans. The red-haired barbarian shook with anger as he glared at the gathered crowd. If I break free from these chains, I will turn this place into a bloody mess. I will tear your limbs and crush your skulls. Arg. The red-haired barbarian shook with pain. He gritted his teeth, refusing to bend, but even with his incredible willpower, he still succumbed to the power of subjugation. Everyone was amazed by the barbarian warrior's resilience. It was also because of this that a wave of bidding followed. 3,000 gold coins going once. Are there still any bidders for this elite knight barbarian warrior? I bid 3,020 gold coins. 3,040 gold coins. While everyone was bidding for the barbarian, Henry and Fredrin exchanged stern glances. I'm pretty sure that this guy is our main rescue target. The old warrior whispered. Fredrin nodded in agreement. They didn't have a picture of their target, but based on the description given by Franklin, the red-haired barbarian was a perfect match. We will proceed according to plan, Fredrin remarked. Amen. The old warrior didn't object to this. According to Franklin, this red-haired barbarian held significant status in his tribe, so the group unanimously agreed to prioritize his safety. The auction continued for another hour, and within this time frame, 3 more barbarians were put up for bidding. At this moment, the host, Lala, introduced the final slave. Everyone, for our final product this year, I dare say that all the products combined aren't even worth half his total value. There was a collective gasp from the crowd when she said those words. All the slaves auctioned so far were worth more than tens of thousands of gold coins. This means that this final product was worth at least 100,000 gold coins. This amount of money wasn't small even for the aristocrats, so everyone was curious to know what kind of slave would be revealed. Looking at the expectant gazes of the audience, Lala smiled enchantingly. Please bring the product on the stage. At her cue, 4 knight-level warriors came in, carrying a metal cage covered in a veil. The crowd watched in anticipation as the warriors brought the metal cage onto the stage. Unveil the product. Lala nodded to the warriors. One of the warriors grabbed the cloth and pulled it down hard, revealing the person within the cage. It was a man who seemed to be in his 30s. He looked no different than a human. The only difference was that he had a pair of goat-like horns. His skin was also noticeably darker with a hint of purple. That is a demonkin. Someone shouted in disbelief. Demonkins were a race of demi-humans who lived in the harsh region beyond the enchanted woodlands. They were beings who possessed extreme power and overwhelming physical strength. The most shocking thing about them was that some of them could wield the power of knights and beast soul warriors simultaneously. That is indeed a demonkin, but he is only a warrior. Too bad. Even so, demonkins are rare and they are perfect tools for combat. Not to mention that this one is a transcendent knight. Indeed. No wonder there was big hype about this year's auction. It turns out that the Crimson Tower had prepared something this special. Everyone was excited. The region beyond the enchanted woodlands was said to be a no-man's land. It was an unexplored territory. Getting this demonkin would provide them with information about this region, and everyone was after this valuable information. A fierce bidding war began after the demonkin was revealed. 10,000 gold coins. I bid 11,000 gold coins. My house will bid 11,500 gold coins for this demonkin. While everyone was bidding for the demonkin, Fredrin and Henry had serious expressions on their faces. How did they capture a demonkin of this level? The old warrior couldn't believe it. Fredrin shook his head, similarly baffled by the unexpected appearance of the demonkin. It must have taken them an army of dozens led by a transcendent knight. He guessed. It was only a rough guess on his part, but even with an army of that size, they would still suffer heavy casualties against a transcendent-level demonkin. That was how powerful these creatures were. The bidding price had already shot up to tens of thousands of gold coins, but the audience didn't slow down in putting up their bid. Henry furrowed his eyebrows as he observed this harbinger of death. The demonkin's whole body was restrained, but even with many special chains restricting its body, the old warrior still felt a wave of fear. These people are really playing with fire. If this demonkin could escape, this entire city would be engulfed in chaos and bloodshed. Just thinking about it made Henry nervous. Is there any news from our reinforcements? Fredrin suddenly whispered. Hearing this, Henry shook his head, looking incredibly solemn. They still haven't sent me a word. It would be difficult for their group alone to fend off all the forces involved. A few days ago, after they received the information from the receptionist, they sent a letter to Alaric informing him about the situation. The latter responded immediately that he would send reinforcements led by William. It had been a while since they exchanged letters, but there was still no word from William. While the two were immersed in their thoughts, the bidding price for the demonkin had already surpassed 100,000 gold coins. Many houses had already given up on the bid. Not everyone had the financial power to bring out this much money. The ones who were still bidding were the bigwigs of the northern and central regions. 112,000 gold coins going once. Lala scanned the crowd, searching for another potential bidder with great anticipation. This time, the audience quieted down. Those who had remained in the bidding war were hesitant to offer another bid. 112,000 gold coins going twice. Is there still anyone who would like to bid? Just as Lala was about to pound the gavel, a firm voice drifted over. I bid 115,000 gold coins. The audience turned their gazes at the bidder, looking at him with surprise. The bidding value had already reached a certain threshold that even rich aristocratic houses would be unable to compete. The one who offered the bid was an old man dressed in clean attire. He was only at the level of a knight, but no one dared to belittle him for he held a significant status. This old man was the representative sent by the Grand Duke. Lala smiled seductively at the old man. This gentleman offered 115,000 gold coins for the demonkin. Is there anyone else who wants to offer a higher bid? Going once. The audience was still silent. No one dared to offer a higher bid since it was tantamount to challenging the Grand Duke. 115,000 gold coins going twice. With no one offering a higher bid, Lala pounded the gavel. Sold. Congratulations to the gentleman for getting the demonkin. A wave of applause and cheers followed after the final bid was announced. Lala ended the event with a small speech. She then sashayed down the stage while giving the audience her signature smile. It's almost time. Henry tapped Fredrin while giving him a knowing look. The latter nodded and stood up from his seat. The guests who had won the bids were taken to the VIP room to receive their slaves. Henry and the others didn't follow them to the VIP room. With all the guards around, going there would be no different than suicide, so they all planned to wait for the targets to come out of the establishment. They regrouped outside the building and discreetly headed to their ambush point, a 2-story building that was directly in front of the road. Just as they were in the middle of their preparations, a warrior urgently approached Henry. Sir, there is a letter from Sir William. The warrior reported. Hearing this, Henry stopped what he was doing and impatiently grabbed the letter from the warrior's hand. Upon reading the letter, a smile gradually appeared on his face. Perfect timing. Chapter 282, First Target Arrives. Immediately send our fastest rider to inform Sir William about the situation. Henry instructed the warrior. Yes, sir. The warrior saluted and left to find a suitable person to do the task. Meanwhile, the group resumed their preparations. For this rescue mission, the plan was to target the people who bought the barbarians. It was a plain and simple ambush plan with no complicated setup. Go and move into your designated spots. Remember, our goal is only to rescue the barbarians. There is no need to fight them to the death. Henry gave a series of commands and also reminded them of their objective. Yes, sir. Everyone quickly moved into action. 3 teams moved separately with the elite knights leading each team. Forming smaller teams in an ambush was more effective because it would be much easier for each team to move around and retreat. The 3 teams hid in different locations to maximize their coverage of the area. At this moment, on top of an old 4-story building, Fredrin's team was observing the road with unblinking eyes. The road is clear, sir. It seems like those representatives from the noble houses are planning to stay in the district for a while. One of his subordinates reported after a simple inspection of their target area. Hearing this, Fredrin nodded as he commanded. Keep your eyes peeled and immediately inform me if you notice any movement. Yes, sir. 2 excruciatingly long hours went by, but there was still no movement from the various noble houses. Fredrin's team was still in peak condition, but if they had to wait longer, it would take a toll on his subordinates. To prevent them from losing focus, he decided to divide the team into 2 batches with one resting while the other was on the lookout. More time passed and nightfall came. There were fewer people on the streets and visibility was low due to the absence of proper light systems in the district. Suddenly, a figure appeared next to Fredrin to give an urgent report. Sir, one of our targets is coming. Fredrin raised an eyebrow and asked. Which one is it? The warrior immediately responded. It's the one who got the girl from the Black Eagle tribe. Fredrin furrowed his eyebrows. Wake up everyone up and tell them to get ready. Yes, sir. As they waited, they could already hear the sound of a marching entourage. The people who bid for the girl from the Black Eagle tribe were from a barony in the northeast. They had 30 people in their group with an elite knight as their commander. It was a decent-sized team, enough to deter bandits or criminals. We only have 6 people on our team, so we must make this quick. Fredrin reminded his subordinates. Yes, sir. With them being outnumbered, they would be in a tough spot in a prolonged battle, so this was the best option for them. A few minutes later, the target finally entered their vision. All of them are cavalry riders. 10 are defenders and the rest are melee fighters. Their commander is that guy wearing a feathered helmet. Fredrin silently analyzed the target's strength. He then gave a hand signal to his team, telling them to take out their crossbows. For this mission, everyone came prepared. They were equipped with their main weapons and they also brought crossbows with them. Their battle armor had also been repaired and upgraded, making them less vulnerable to blade-inflicted wounds. Fredrin made a hand gesture, a sign for the team to take aim. Shoot your crossbow bolts. Fredrin commanded as soon as the target stepped within their range. Sue. 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 As they had agreed beforehand, they targeted the weaker warriors first to even out their numbers. In the next moment, 5 warriors fell from their horses. Enemy attack. The enemy commander was quick to react. He gave a series of commands to prevent his subordinates from falling into a state of panic. They surrounded the carriage where the young barbarian girl was held while keeping their eyes open for the next wave of attacks. Seeing this, Fredrin made another hand gesture. Cover me. I will go down alone. He didn't wait for his subordinates to respond as he jumped down from the building with a quick leap. Whoosh. As soon as he revealed himself, the enemies were alerted. Who are you? Why are you targeting us? The enemy commander glared at Fredrin, who was currently wearing a mask. The latter didn't hide his aura so he could sense his formidable strength. They were both in the elite knight realm, but compared to this mysterious masked warrior, he felt that he was significantly weaker. Fredrin didn't respond. He calmly approached them as he unsheathed his sword and shield. Shurring. The enemy commander was threatened by his presence, so he immediately commanded 5 of his subordinates to attack him. The 5 of you, follow me to attack that guy. Yes, sir." The sound of galloping horses echoed as the enemy commander led a small unit to charge toward Fredrin. However, before they could get closer to him, he suddenly sensed danger from above. "Look out! There are more of them. Sue! 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 Thack! Thack! Thack!" With his quick warning, 4 of his subordinates were able to evade the crossbow bolts, but there was one unlucky fellow who was shot in his shoulder and fell off his horse. The enemy commander gritted his teeth and shouted, "Stay behind me. We need to kill that man first." "Yes, sir." Fredrin remained calm as they approached him. He quietly imbued mana into his sword and shield. He then planted his feet firmly on the ground. The enemy commander was stunned by this. The masked warrior actually stood his ground without intending to retreat. "Are you underestimating me?" he roared furiously as he brandished his halberd. Whoosh! Seeing his attack, Fredrin immediately lifted his shield. Bang! What? The enemy commander was startled. He attacked with all his strength and even used the momentum of his charge in that swing, but the masked warrior actually managed to block it with ease. Fredrin didn't remain idle after blocking the halberd. He swung his sword, forcing the enemy commander to deflect it with the shaft of his weapon. Clang! The shaft of his halberd was coated with steel, making it sturdier and more durable. The force behind Fredrin's casual swing made him recoil, and even his horse was forced to take a couple of steps back. "This guy is strong. Just who is he?" At this moment, his subordinates had already arrived. They attacked Fredrin in various directions, not giving him the opportunity to retreat. Fredrin snorted beneath his mask. So weak. He smoothly evaded the attacks that he couldn't block while also releasing a few slashes. Whoosh! Whoosh! Clang! Clang! Ah! My hand! One cavalry rider fell from his mount after having his dominant hand cut off. Fredrin didn't stop there. He used his shield to crush another warrior's skull. Kkish. In just a blink of an eye, 2 knights had been taken down with one dead and another one severely injured. Sue! 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 Another wave of crossbow bolts was released, killing another warrior. This time, only the enemy commander and one lucky survivor remained. They were both shocked by the quick turn of events. Realizing that they had encountered a formidable foe, the enemy commander shouted, "Retreat immediately. Protect the representative at all costs." Following his instructions, the warriors who hadn't charged with them turned to flee, but how could Fredrin let them escape? He rushed upon them and lunged himself at the carriage. Whoosh! Stop him. Don't let him get close to the carriage. The enemy commander shouted in alarm, but it was already too late. Fredrin had already landed on the carriage's roof. He killed the coachman with a stab and pried the door open. Inside the carriage, he saw a naked middle-aged man cowering in fear right next to a young girl with a pair of black wings. Without hesitation, Fredrin killed the middle-aged man who clearly did something unsavory to the young girl. "We don't have much time. You need to follow me if you want to live," Fredrin whispered to the barbarian girl. The barbarian girl hesitated for a moment, but she chose to trust her instincts and grabbed Fredrin's hand. Fredrin noticed that her clothes were in disarray, but there wasn't much time to waste. He pulled her up and jumped into the darkness. Looking at the dark alleyways, the enemy commander halted. "Sir, do we give chase?" one of his subordinates asked. "Do you think we can catch that person?" The enemy commander sighed. The person he was supposed to protect was killed, and even the barbarian girl they had gotten from the Crimson Tower was taken away from them. "Gather our comrades' bodies. We need to report this to the other houses and seek help from them." Their only option now was to ask for support from other households. Chapter 283, Ada Shah. Fredrin took the barbarian girl to the agreed-upon meeting spot, a small house they had bought from a commoner family. Who are you? The girl from the Black Eagle tribe glanced warily at Fredrin. Although this person saved her, she wasn't aware of his motives. Fredrin didn't take off his mask since the situation was still unpredictable. He carefully observed the surroundings, and it was only when he made sure that no one suspicious was nearby did he respond to the girl. I will tell you once all your people are here. He spoke in common language so the barbarian girl understood him. What do you plan to do with us? She was still suspicious of this masked warrior. To be precise, she no longer trusted humans. Fredrin frowned while looking at the girl. I understand that you are feeling suspicious, but please trust me. We don't mean you any harm. In the meantime, please wait patiently while my comrades are saving the rest of your people. Once everyone is gathered, I will explain everything to you. Hearing this, the girl no longer asked anything and just nodded her head. Fredrin noticed that she was uncomfortable because of the special chain, so he took out a cutting tool from his bag and said, "Let me help you with that. This can cut those chains." The girl didn't move and allowed him to cut off the chains. Clang! Clang! Once everything was removed, she felt an unprecedented sense of relief and comfort. Those chains weighted her down and prevented her from using her mana. Now that they had been removed, she felt lighter. He doesn't seem to have any ill intentions, but can I really trust this human? He didn't even show me his face. Should I escape now? Thinking about this, she looked around, searching for a possible escape route. However, as if knowing what was on her mind, a calm voice suddenly drifted into her ears. Don't even think about escaping if you want to leave this place alive. She glanced at the masked human in alarm and blurted out. What do you mean? Fredrin walked to the window side and beckoned to her. Come and take a look at the situation outside. The barbarian girl furrowed her eyebrows. With a hesitant look, she slowly walked towards the window and looked through the small gap opened by the masked human. Outside, she could see dozens of human warriors roaming around as if searching for something. As you can see, they are looking for us. If you step out of this house, you will be captured by those people and they will send you to the guys who bought you from the tower. Fredrin told her, his words making her feel a sense of anxiety. After knowing the situation she was in, she no longer said anything. She just sat in the corner looking listlessly at the ceiling. Fredrin didn't say anything and waited for his subordinates to arrive. About half an hour later, his subordinates finally arrived, panting heavily as they entered the house. I thought we would be caught. One of them exclaimed as he slumped into a chair, looking incredibly exhausted. Luckily they aren't that fast and the alleyways here are also narrow. Another one added. The barbarian girl glanced at them with vigilance. The old human who had bought her kept on touching her when they were inside the carriage. She was worried that these humans had similar thoughts. If it really comes to that, then I will kill myself before they can touch me. Are you all right, my lady? One of the masked warriors asked in a gentle voice. The barbarian girl glanced at him and didn't say anything. She quietly channeled her mana into her hand. If they would do something to her, she was prepared to take her own life. Fredrin noticed the fluctuations of mana, but he decided not to intervene. With his speed, he could stop her before she could do something. What is this kid planning to do? Don't be nervous. The warrior who had spoken took off his mask. It was a middle-aged knight with a kind face. Once our reinforcements are here, we will take you out of this place and bring you back to your family. Hearing this, the barbarian girl raised her eyebrows in surprise. Are you telling the truth? Of course. The middle-aged knight nodded gently. The barbarian girl didn't trust him immediately. Why are you helping us? What will you gain from this? The middle-aged knight chuckled as he replied with a voice filled with reverence. Because our Lord is merciful. The other masked warriors nodded in agreement. The barbarian girl was confused by his response. Looking at her baffled look, the middle-aged knight asked. What's your name, my lady? The barbarian girl glanced at the kind middle-aged knight and hesitated to reply. You don't need to tell me if you don't want to. The middle-aged knight smiled before he wore his mask again. He then turned around and just when he was about to walk away. My name is Ada Shah. The middle-aged knight smiled beneath his mask and left. Ada Shah, is it? One more of your people is coming. You tell him the situation. Fredrin calmly spoke. Before she could respond, the door was pushed open by another group of masked warriors. You guys are here? No wonder the district's security is panicking outside. One of the people who had arrived said. Fredrin tapped the man's shoulder and pointed to Ada Shah. Bring the kid to her. She will explain the situation. Henry looked at the girl in surprise, wondering what had happened before they arrived. Although he was curious, he didn't bother to ask. All right. The old warrior signaled his subordinates to bring the young barbarian they had rescued to Ada Shah. Ada Shah watched everything in silence. Are they really going to help us leave this place? While she was deep in thought, the masked warriors brought a teenage barbarian to her and told her to explain the situation. Chapter 284, Turtle Formation. Ada Shah, can we really trust these men? The young barbarian boy asked her with a strong feeling of vigilance. Ada Shah shook her head and replied. I'm not sure, but we have no choice. They have a lot of people on their side, so escaping from them is also impossible. Let's just wait and see. While Ada Shah exchanged words with the young barbarian, Fredrin saw that the district security was searching the nearby houses. They are searching every house. This place isn't safe anymore. We need to head to the next hiding spot and wait for Sir Vaughn's team. Fredrin suggested with a serious tone. No one disagreed with his decision. Before leaving the house, they removed their traces to prevent anyone from tracking them. Where are they bringing us? The young barbarian nervously asked Ada Shah. Do you think I know? Stop asking and help me think how we should escape. Ada Shah replied, her eyebrows furrowed. She noticed that the masked warriors were very methodical in their actions. They followed a strict form of hierarchy and each person carried an important role. In the face of such an orderly group, she didn't even know how they could escape. So you guys are here. Do you think you can escape from us? A furious voice suddenly drifted over. Ada Shah looked up and saw a muscular middle-aged warrior holding a pair of battle axes. He wore leather armor with a steel breastplate, a light choice for someone with his build. You guys go. I will take care of this guy. Fredrin shouted to the group. The muscular middle-aged warrior sneered. Did you think I came alone? As his words fell, more warriors poured in, covering all their escape routes. Damn! Henry cursed under his breath when he realized that they had fallen into a trap. Don't panic. Stick together and protect the barbarians. Fredrin instructed when he noticed everyone's uneasiness. The group was composed of veteran warriors, so they quickly reacted to the situation upon hearing his commands. They formed a tight circle with the two barbarians in the middle to ensure their safety. Looking at them, the muscular middle-aged warrior waved his hand and shouted. Kill them all and take the barbarians. As soon as his words fell, his subordinates immediately charged towards Fredrin and the others, attacking them in all directions. Turtle formations. Fredrin issued a command. Everyone held their shields in front of them to form an impregnable formation with almost no targetable area. Even the space above their heads was covered, making it impossible for an arrow to penetrate their defense. As the enemies neared, Fredrin shouted once more. Spears forward. Caught off guard, the enemies were unable to evade or block their spears. One by one, they collapsed and they weren't even able to get close to the turtle-like formation. What kind of cowardly tactics is this? Furious, the muscular middle-aged warrior lunged himself forward, choosing to lead the next wave of attack. With him in front, his subordinates were no longer flustered. Follow closely behind me. We will destroy this turtle-like formation. The enemy commander shouted. Seeing this, Fredrin furrowed his eyebrows. Stopping normal warriors was easy, but against stronger enemies, their formation wouldn't last long. I will stop him. You guys stay within the formation while I kill the enemy commander. Fredrin stepped out without waiting for their response. He then rushed to the enemy commander with his sword and shield. You brave bastard. The muscular elite knight snorted as he saw Fredrin step out of formation. Kill him. He commanded his subordinates as he brandished his battle axes with fearsome force. Whoosh. Whoosh. He is more powerful than the guy I fought earlier, but he is still nowhere near Sir Henry's level. Fredrin assessed his enemy's strength with a glance. He then raised his shield to block the attacks and used his sword to deflect another. Clang. Clang. HM. The muscular elite knight was stunned. The guy didn't even flinch after taking on both his axes. No wonder you are brave. It turns out you have some abilities, but I'm not your only opponent. He muttered with a sneer. In the next moment, more warriors came to attack Fredrin. Whoosh. Whoosh. Clang. Clang. Fredrin calmly evaded those he couldn't block. He then released a powerful sweeping slash that killed 3 warriors. So strong. Watch out. The muscular elite knight couldn't believe his eyes. They had already surrounded the enemy, but they couldn't even injure him. Is this guy really an elite knight? Sweat trickled down his face as he continued his relentless attacks. His mana was being quickly depleted, but he hadn't even landed any substantial damage. In a moment of distraction, he received a stab in his chest, making him stagger backward. He groaned as he watched the lone enemy killing his subordinates with great ease. We can't win here. I need to escape. Thinking of this, he turned around and retreated while applying pressure on his wound. Suddenly, a flail came to his sight, making him feel a wave of fear. He quickly evaded by bending his body to the side. Whoosh. Oh, you dodged that? A nonchalant voice drifted into his ears. Before he could even see his opponent, he heard something crack behind him. To his horror, he realized that it was actually his back being struck by the flail. The muscular elite knight flew like a ragdoll and crashed into a nearby house, his fate unknown. Bang! Vaughn didn't spare him a glance and looked at the situation of the other group. The enemies had lost their commander, so there was confusion in their ranks. Fredrin's group killed them one by one. There were a few who managed to escape, but they didn't give chase. Sir Vaughn, you're here. Fredrin was glad to see him. Vaughn nodded and said, This is not the right place to talk. Let's get going before enemy reinforcements arrive. All right. Let's go. Fredrin gave a signal to everyone. The group didn't hesitate and left the area immediately. Chapter 285, Cunning Move. Inside a bigger house within Jusren district. Is this place still safe? Fredrin asked as he looked at the situation outside through a small gap in the window. It should be safe. The people who know we bought this place are already dead, Vaughn calmly responded. When they heard his words, everyone stared at him with stern faces. The chivalrous warriors of House Silversword were very sensitive about matters like this. Sensing their unusual gazes, the former mercenary sneered. If I had left them alive, our location would be compromised. Killing them was necessary. The atmosphere turned cold all of a sudden, so Henry quickly stepped in. Please don't misunderstand Sir Vaughn's actions. The old warrior quickly spoke before an argument would break out. Those people are part of a criminal organization that steals from the common people. Letting them live will only bring more harm than good. He explained. Vaughn raised an eyebrow at the old warrior's explanation. It was a lie, but he didn't bother to correct it. With Henry's words, everyone finally relaxed. So it's actually like that. I misunderstood you, Sir Vaughn. Someone chuckled nervously. More people expressed their relief that it was only a misunderstanding. Only Fredrin and a few smart ones felt that something wasn't quite right. Enough about that, how should we rescue the remaining barbarians? Henry immediately changed the topic, stirring it to another matter. With all the warriors from various houses searching for us, it will be difficult to move around. He added. This was indeed a big problem, and it made everyone fall into a long silence. They might be composed of veteran warriors, but against hundreds of enemies, they weren't confident about making it out of the city alive. Their only hope now was for William's army to intervene, but this would also make House Silversword become a common enemy to everyone involved with the Crimson Tower. Is there any way for us to escape without alerting anyone? Someone muttered. No one responded for a long time, until... There is a way. Fredrin opened his mouth, his expression looking incredibly serious. Everyone glanced at him and waited for him to explain his thoughts. Fredrin took a deep breath and looked at the rescued barbarians before he continued his explanation. With many eyes watching the entire district, it is impossible for us to escape as a group, so we must send a separate unit to act as bait to lure those people away. While everyone is focused on pursuing the bait, the main group will leave the district together with the barbarians. Everyone frowned upon hearing this. This plan is very dangerous, Sir Fredrin, especially for those who will act as bait. One of them expressed his worry about the plan. Some people nodded in agreement, clearly opposed to the idea. If we follow according to your plan, what about the other 2 barbarians that we haven't rescued? Henry asked while looking at Fredrin. He believed that Fredrin's plan was plausible despite the risks involved. Fredrin glanced at the old warrior and replied. We can just wait outside the city. We already know the targets anyway, so we just need to wait in certain roads. There are only 6 possible routes that. We have Sir William's army, so we can just divide everyone into 6 groups and place them into these key locations. He explained his plans to the group. This time, everyone became silent. Although his plan was dangerous, they couldn't think of a much better alternative. What do you guys think of Sir Fredrin's plan? Henry looked at everyone, waiting to hear their opinion. I am not against it, but who will act as the bait? Someone asked. Everyone glanced at each other with hesitation. Most of them had families waiting for them at home, so they were a bit reluctant to volunteer. Since I made the suggestion, it wouldn't be right if I don't volunteer for the task. Fredrin with a faint smile beneath his mask. Everyone stared at him in surprise. They all knew that he had a pregnant wife waiting for him at home, so they couldn't believe that he would actually volunteer for such a dangerous task. Absolutely not. I won't allow it. Henry snorted while shaking his head. Your wife is still pregnant. What would she feel if something were to happen to you? Think about your wife and your unborn child, Sir Fredrin. The old warrior reminded him with a serious look. Fredrin fell silent upon hearing this. Vaughn wanted to say something, but Henry raised his hand before he could speak. Don't even think about volunteering. You also have a family waiting for you. Vaughn was speechless. I will act as the bait, but I will need 3 people to help me out. Otherwise, the people outside might feel that something is amiss. Henry spoke in a decisive tone. Sir Henry, this task is very dangerous. You should sit out on this one. How about I? Someone was about to give his opinion when they suddenly felt the presence of a warrior outside the house. Everyone quickly grabbed their weapons and prepared to take action. Wait. There is no need to be alarmed. The guy is one of us. Fredrin quickly informed the group when he discovered the identity of the person outside. It turned out that it was the warrior they sent to inform William about the situation. Furthermore, he didn't come alone. It's Sir Butch and Sir Arthur. They were 2 of the most formidable elite knights in the household. Seeing them made everyone feel relieved. After a round of enthusiastic greetings, Arthur immediately told everyone about William's plan. Sir William knew that you guys would plan something dangerous, so he sent us here to inform you about his decision. Sir William wants to block off the entire district and perform an inspection in the name of Princess Irish. Hearing this, everyone was stunned. William was actually bold enough to use the princess name to do an inspection, but from a logical perspective, there was nothing wrong with it. After all, The princess was currently in the north, so it was necessary to perform inspections when there was risk to her safety. If something happened to the princess, the blame would fall on House Silversword. Henry rubbed chin and chuckled. It seems like Sir William is smarter than all of us combined. He actually came up with such an ingenious idea. If they followed William's plan, no one would find it suspicious since everyone in the north was already aware that the princess was currently in North Pine Town. Furthermore, they could also make use of the imperial family's name to put pressure on those involved with the Crimson Tower. What a cunning move! Someone exclaimed in admiration. William was usually a low-key person, but this plan made them realize that this old transcendent was a scary individual. Let's do it. Fredrin was the first one to agree. His plan was too reckless compared to what William had suggested. Is there anyone opposed to Sir William's plan? Henry asked while looking at everyone. Everyone shook their heads. Seeing this, Henry smiled. Since we all agree to the plan, please tell us what to do, Sir Arthur. All right. Listen carefully. Arthur didn't waste any time and told everyone what they should do. The next day, a lockdown was declared by the officials of Copperglade on Jusren. The residents of the district were stunned by the unexpected announcement. However, the ones who felt nervous were the people involved with the Crimson Tower. What made them even more anxious was that House Silversword had sent an army to do the inspection on the district. At this moment, William was leading his army to search every house. The officials in Copperglade even sent their people to follow them to cooperate with the inspection. With the joint investigation of the two entities, the parties involved with the Crimson Tower had no reason to oppose them. Sir William, how about we continue the inspection at another time? I will lead the investigations myself. There is no need to trouble you with such trifling matters. An official of the city nervously suggested, his face full of sweat. William gave him a cold look. What is trifling about ensuring the safety of Her Highness? Are you saying that Her Highness's safety is just a small matter? The official almost buckled under the intense pressure he exuded. I didn't mean it that way. How could the dash? William snorted as he pushed the man away. He then commanded in a stern voice. Capture this guy for questioning. I suspect that he is hiding something. The official was scared. It's a misunderstanding. Please let me explain. No one listened to his pleas, not even his fellow officials. This matter involved the imperial family, so they were afraid to interfere. William's subordinates quickly grabbed the official and brought him away. No one said anything when they saw this. Chapter 286, Using Force to Reveal the Truth. When William's army confronted the noble houses, they finally faced opposition. How dare you stop us from investigating? Do you know the consequences of your actions? William roared at the nobles who had banded together to form a collective resistance. The leader of the nobles was the representative sent by the Grand Duke, so even the officials of Copperglade felt nervous upon facing him. Sir William, there might be a misunderstanding somewhere. Why don't we let the Grand Duke's people go? I don't think they would do anything to harm Her Highness. After all, Her Highness is the Grand Duke's niece. An official whispered to William, but the latter sneered in response. He had already been made aware of the things that happened in the Crimson Tower. Based on the information he received, the Grand Duke's people were involved with the illegal auctioning of barbarians. So how could William allow them to leave? Sir William, I understand your concerns about Her Highness' safety, but you are being unreasonable in detaining all of us here. If this ever reaches the Grand Duke's ears, House Silversword might face heavy punishment, said the old representative from the Grand Duke's mansion with a warning tone. Hearing this, William laughed coldly. Did you really think that you could scare me with your background? His transcendent realm aura suddenly descended upon the gathered crowd, forcing everyone to kneel from the oppressive force. Only the knights and elite knights were able to remain standing, while the rest fell to the ground, breathing unevenly. Sir William, please show mercy. There is no need to use force. The city officials were scared witless when they witnessed this situation. William didn't direct his aura to them, so they weren't affected by it. To prevent the situation from becoming worse, they tried to beg him for mercy and plead leniency. However, the old Transcendent Knight remained firm, unmoved by their pleas. The old representative from the Grand Duke's mansion gritted his teeth while struggling under the intense pressure. William. How bold of you to oppress the nobility of the empire. If you really want to make an investigation, then you must submit the necessary documents and evidence first. He couldn't back down here. Otherwise, the Grand Duke's name would be tarnished. William smirked, disdain evident on his face. He made a hand signal to his subordinates and instructed in a cold voice. Bring that old thing in front of me and make him shut up. Yes, sir. His subordinates responded without hesitation. They then approached the old representative and dragged him towards William while disregarding his complaints. You guys will pay for this. House Silversword won't get away with dash. Pa. So noisy. William muttered in contempt after giving the old representative a resounding slap to the face. You. The old representative was filled with disbelief and rage. This guy actually dared to humiliate him in front of the crowd. Everyone gasped upon seeing this. An old city official even passed out due to anxiety and shock. William raised his hand, looking like he was about to give the old representative another slap. Seeing this, the latter immediately flinched and closed his eyes. Say another word and you will have to look for your teeth later. William's voice drifted into his ears. Hearing this, the old representative was furious, but he didn't dare utter a word. He could only stare at William with a deathly glare. William moved his eyes away from the old representative. He then made another gesture to his subordinates and commanded. Inspect their carriages and kill those who resist. Yes, sir. The nobles nervously glanced at each other, but no one dared to make a move. They felt that William wouldn't hesitate to cut their bodies if they ever decided to resist the inspection. In the end, they could only watch as William's subordinates inspect their carriages one by one. A moment later, the warriors came back and reported to William. Sir, we found a few slaves in some of the carriages. 2 of them are barbarians. The warriors didn't lower the volume of their voices so everyone heard them loud and clear. When the officials heard this, they were stunned. What? Is this true? The city mayor, who had been silent the entire time, staggered, his face pale as if he had lost a lot of blood. I'm done for. I shouldn't have accepted those bribes. Other than him, a few corrupt officials also collapsed, and there was even one official who tried to escape only to be captured by William's subordinates. Wait. I don't know anything. This is a mistake. Wadash. Pa. The officials who were involved with the illegal auction were beaten up. It was only when William raised his hand did his subordinates stopped. The old Transcendent Knight then looked at the representative of the Grand Duke with a sly smile. No wonder you were so noisy earlier. It turns out that the Grand Duke's mansion is actually involved with something like this. The old representative frowned while clenching his fists. If he could, he would have punched William's face, but he knew that it was impossible with the huge difference in their strength. I must not let them besmirch the reputation of the Grand Duke. I must do something. Thinking about this, he immediately opened his mouth. The Grand Duke doesn't know anything about this. His only choice here was to sacrifice himself to save his lord's reputation. William narrowed his eyes. Detain this man and bring these people to be questioned. This guy didn't even hesitate to take the blame for his master. The warriors of House Silversword captured the nobles and temporarily detained them to be interrogated. Now that the truth has been revealed, the officials and the city defense force no longer hesitated to offer their support in the investigation. Meanwhile, William went to take a look at the slaves they had rescued. Among them, the first one he noticed was the Demonkin. This guy's aura was so strong that it even made him feel threatened. A transcendent Demonkin. Are these guys insane? They actually enslaved something like this. Chapter 287, Lucas summons Alaric to his study. The Demonkin was bound by special chains, making it impossible for him to move without anyone's support, but despite this, William still felt an inexplicable feeling of fear. His instincts were telling him that this demon-kin was way more powerful than him. The old transcendent knight quickly pulled his gaze from the demon-kin and looked at the red-haired barbarian. This guy should be the primary rescue target. After observing the rescued slaves, he sent a signal to his subordinates, telling them to bring everyone into a safe place. The warriors had no problem with escorting the slaves, but they hesitated to get close to the demon-kin. "Sir, what about that guy?" one of the warriors asked hesitantly. Knowing that his subordinates were uncomfortable with escorting the demon-kin, William could only volunteer for the task. "I will take care of the demon-kin. You guys can go ahead." He waved his hand dismissively. "Yes, sir." There were a lot of things to do due to the complicated nature of the situation. There were many aristocrats and powerful figures involved with the Crimson Tower, so William told the officials to be thorough with the investigation. While the nobles and the people involved were being interrogated, William summoned Fredrin's group to another location to gather all the rescued slaves in one place. It was already noon when Fredrin's group arrived. "I'm glad to know that everyone is safe." William smiled upon seeing them. Fredrin and the others saluted him while expressing their gratitude. "You arrived just in time, sir. If you had come a day later, the group wouldn't have been complete." Enough with these depressing words. "What do you think we should do with those slaves?" William pointed at the people they rescued. Excluding the barbarians, the rest of them had no homes to return to, so William didn't know what to do with them. Fredrin rubbed his chin and thought for a moment before he responded. "If it's all right with them, how about we bring them to the household? Lord Alaric's wedding is approaching, so we will definitely need more people to keep things under control. We can ask them first and see if they are interested." William had also thought of this, but he was hesitant because of the demon-kin. Fredrin seemed to have realized the old transcendent knight's worries, so he added, "As for the demon-kin, we can let Lord Alaric decide what to do with him." "Fine, but you guys better keep an eye on that thing. Who knows what it might do if we aren't looking?" William reminded him. "Don't worry, sir. I will keep an eye on it." Fredrin reassured him. "All right. You go and ask them if they are interested in coming with us." William waved his hand. "Yes, sir." Fredrin responded with a salute. Meanwhile, inside the main mansion in the estate of House Silversword, Alaric was cleaning his sword when a notification from the system appeared in front of him. _____. Mission complete. Rewards, 600 battle points, 20 EXP, 10 stat points. _____. Seeing this, Alaric was pleasantly surprised. It looks like they completed the task. He smiled as he inspected his attributes. Alaric Silversword, Elite Knight, EXP, 335, 355/1000. Potential, A. Traits, Horseback Riding, C. Swordsmanship, SSS, Close Combat, C. Archery, E. Hunting, E. Tracking, D. Sixth Sense, E. Monster Affinity, E. Mana Gathering, C. Appraisal, B. Strength, 200. Stamina, 200. Agility, 200. Vitality, 195. Endurance, 198. Mana, 250. Battle points, 4,900, 5,500. Stat points, 30, 40. Requirements for the next advancement, 1,000 EXP, 250 in all attributes, and 10,000 battle points. He was already more than half his battle point requirement and more than a third of his EXP requirement. As for his attributes, he was also close to reaching the maximum level. He didn't distribute his unallocated stat points and decided to keep them for the time being. While he was inspecting his attributes, he suddenly heard a series of knocks on the door. Knock. 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 "My lord, the Baron has summoned you to his study." Elena's voice drifted into his ears. Hearing this, Alaric raised an eyebrow. His father hadn't spoken with him ever since the princess had arrived in the town. He felt that there was something unusual about this, but he hadn't found the chance to talk with Lucas. "All right. I will be there soon," Alaric responded as he tidied his clothes. He then stepped out of his room and headed to Lucas' study with Elena. Elena could see Alaric's tense expression. He tried to hide it, but she was very familiar with his mannerisms, so she quickly sensed it. However, she didn't say anything along the way. When they arrived, she knocked on the door and announced their arrival. "My lord, I have brought Lord Alaric with me. Tell him to come inside." Lucas' voice echoed from inside the room. Hearing this, Elena turned her gaze to Alaric and said, "My lord, the Baron didn't tell me to follow you inside. Please head in by yourself." "Amen. You don't need to wait for me here." Alaric gave her a gentle smile. He patted her head before he stepped inside the room. As he entered the familiar room, Alaric felt unusually nervous for some reason. He looked at his father, who was seated behind his desk, and saw him wearing a stern face. Lucas beckoned to him and pointed at the chair adjacent to his desk. "Sit down." Alaric nodded without saying a word. He then took his seat and looked at his father, waiting for him to speak. Lucas took a deep breath. "Initially, I plan on telling him the truth after his wedding, but I believe that Alaric is already mature enough to understand the situation." He gathered his thoughts before he opened his mouth. "My son, I summoned you here to tell you something important. This is related to your true identity." He deliberately took a pause to give Alaric some time to comprehend his words. To his surprise, Alaric remained calm, so he no longer hesitated. "Alaric, Maria isn't your real." Chapter 288, Alaric learns about his true identity. "Maria isn't your real mother." Alaric furrowed his eyebrows upon hearing this. His father had never told him about this in his past life. "Your mother's name is Jade Christine Estania," Lucas said, observing his son's reaction. He thought that Alaric would be furious, but other than being a bit surprised, he didn't give much of a reaction. Alaric raised an eyebrow. "You mean my real mother is?" Lucas nodded. "That is right. Your mother is someone from the imperial family. She is the younger sister of the current emperor." With Lucas' confirmation, Alaric finally realized why the old Marquis, Tyrone, had always been very respectful to him in his past life despite the huge disparity in their status. It turned out that he actually carried the blood of the imperial family. Alaric slumped into his seat and rubbed his temples as he digested all this information. Looking at Alaric's complicated expression, Lucas sighed. "I did not want to hide it from you, son." He wanted to explain himself, but no words came out of his mouth. He felt that he was to be blamed for all that had happened. "It is my fault." Lucas lowered his head to hide the sorrow and guilt in his eyes. "Jade, you must have suffered a lot." He felt torn, but he didn't want to cry in front of his child. "You do not need to be sorry, Dad. I understand. You must have had your reasons for choosing to hide my identity." Even without Lucas' explanation, Alaric could guess what his father was worried about. "Dad probably does not want me to be involved with the imperial family's schemes. Perhaps he made this decision together with my real mother." Lucas was surprised to hear his son's words. "Alaric. Then where's my mother?" Alaric suddenly asked, his face looking incredibly serious. Lucas took a deep breath and gathered his thoughts before he replied. "You are already an elite knight, so I will not hide it from you. To be honest, I am also not certain about your mother's situation, but I am pretty sure that she is confined within the imperial castle." "Confined? Why would they confine the younger sister of the emperor?" Alaric frowned. Lucas' expression suddenly turned dark as he responded. "Because the imperial family wants her to marry the crown prince of Harun." Alaric was stunned. "But you do not need to worry. I will not let that happen. Even if I have to fight two empires, I will make sure that your mother will not be taken away from us." Lucas subconsciously leaked out his aura due to his rampaging emotions. The pressure coming from a mythical knight made Alaric feel as if a towering mountain was pressing down on him. Lucas quickly recalled his aura when he noticed Alaric's uncomfortable look. After the pressure was gone, Alaric asked, "What is your plan, Dad? If you plan to take Mother by force, please take me with you." His eyes flashed with determination when he uttered these words. Lucas was gratified. Not only was Alaric mature enough to understand his difficulties, his son was also brave enough to follow him and rescue his mother. "All right, but now is not the right time." Lucas shook his head. House Silversword hadn't taken full control of the north, so they still didn't have the fighting force to confront the imperial family. "I have already sent my subordinates to quietly gather the northern houses under our banner. Once we have their support, that is the time for us to strike." Lucas spoke with unwavering determination. _____. Mission: rescue your birth mother. Mission difficulty: extreme. Your birth mother was placed under house arrest for attempting to escape from the imperial castle. Rescue her and proclaim to the world that you are her son. Rewards: 2,500 battle points, 150 EXP, 50 stat points, random trait upgrade card X1, equipment upgrade card X1. Additional rewards will be given when certain conditions are met. _____. Alaric narrowed his eyes when he saw the notification from the system. Learning his true identity actually gave him a mission, an extreme-rated one at that. He had only gotten an extreme-rated mission once and it gave him a huge boost in his attributes. He also received an Elite Knight card as a bonus reward for completing a certain task. I wonder what kind of bonus reward I will get if I complete the hidden objective. Alaric temporarily put this matter aside. Even without the mission rewards, he would still follow his father to rescue his mother. He looked at his father and said, "Then please inform me once everything is ready. I will have my warriors ready for your call." Lucas nodded with a faint smile. "I will. For now, you should focus on your wedding. I still have things to discuss with Maria." Hearing this, Alaric hesitated. Does Mom know about my identity?" he asked. Although Maria wasn't his real mother, this never stopped him from calling her Mom, and he would never stop treating her like his real mother. Lucas nodded with a long sigh. "Maria knew about it from the start. She treated you like you were her child and she had never complained about it." Alaric felt a wave of warmth upon hearing this. She was just as he had always remembered, a caring and loving mother. Thinking about this, he stood up from his seat and tapped his father's shoulder. "You should talk with Mom. I will visit her later." Lucas nodded with a light smile. "I will." Alaric didn't linger. He bowed to Lucas and left with firm footsteps. Lucas watched him leave, his eyes flashing with relief. He had always carried this guilt and regret. Now that he had let it all out, he felt like a bit of the weight had been lifted off his shoulders. Jade. He walked towards the window and looked at the distant sky with a gaze filled with longing. "I am coming." Chapter 289, An Unusual Friendship. 2 days later, in Copper Glade. "Sir, we have already compiled the information we got from those nobles. With this much evidence, it should be enough to make those people pay," Fredrin reported as he handed a stack of documents to William. In the past 2 days, they had interrogated the nobles and all the other people who were involved with the Crimson Tower. William took the documents and carefully put everything inside a box. "Good job, Sir Fredrin. Now that we have sufficient evidence, all that is left is to send these documents to the imperial family." If he could, he would have taken all those corrupt nobles into prison and sentenced them, but he knew that it was impossible. Even House Silversword didn't have the authority to forcibly imprison those people. Their only choice was to report everything to the imperial family, but this would also require Alaric or even the Baron to make a personal visit to the imperial castle. "How about the rescued people? Are they interested in coming with us?" the old Transcendent Knight asked, changing the topic. Fredrin smiled and nodded his head. I told them about what we had discussed and they gave us a favorable response. We only need our Lord's approval. William nodded, looking quite pleased. He tapped Fredrin's shoulder and replied. Get ready to depart. We are heading back to North Pine Town. Their task here was done, so there was no reason for them to stay. Yes, sir. I will inform everyone to prepare for departure. Fredrin responded with a salute. Azazel opened his eyes and found himself inside a horse-drawn carriage together with a diverse crowd. There were humans, barbarians, and there was himself a demonkin. Where are we being taken to? He spoke in the common language but with an unusual accent. Everyone was stunned when they heard him talk. Some shook with fear, while the others looked down, afraid to say anything. Looking at their reaction, Azazel sighed and shook his head. After inadvertently coming to this place, everyone showed the same reaction, so he had already gotten used to it. However, the feeling of being misunderstood still hurt him. He closed his eyes and leaned to make himself more comfortable. His limbs were tied so he couldn't adjust his posture properly, and this made him feel uncomfortable. Do you need help, my lord? A gentle and meek voice drifted into his ears. Azazel opened his eyes and looked at the person who had spoken, his eyes shaking with surprise. No one had ever taken the initiative to speak with him. Everyone was afraid of him and not one person dared to look at him in the eye. Well, except for the little girl in front of him. She was tiny and looked emaciated, probably from malnutrition. A pitiful girl. Are you speaking to me? He asked, looking at her in doubt. He still couldn't believe that she was talking to him, so he asked for confirmation. The young girl nodded, albeit with a nervous expression. Why, yes, my lord. I see. Azazel could barely move, so he used his fingers to make hand gestures to the girl. Can you help me sit properly? I can't move well with all these restraints. The young girl nodded. She went to his side and helped him adjust to a more comfortable sitting position, but she found herself unable to lift him. So heavy. She used all the strength she could muster, but she was unable to help him, making her feel embarrassed. I'm sorry, my lord. I can't. Azazel stared at the young girl in amusement. She was weak, terribly so, but she still tried to help him. Why did you try to help me when you are this weak? The young girl was ashamed, but she still responded. Because my father always told me to help someone in need regardless of their status or race. Her voice trembled with sorrow when she mentioned this. Azazel noticed the tears that were threatening to fall from her eyes. Your father was a good man. I know. The girl smiled faintly as she wiped away her tears using the back of her hand. At this moment, another person spoke. Are you really a demonkin? Azazel turned his head and looked at the red-haired barbarian with a baffled look. I am. The red-haired barbarian rubbed his chin, his eyebrows knitted with confusion. I thought demonkins were nasty beings who prey on anything they see, but it seems like that is not true. He sat next to Azazel as he said those words. You are not wrong. Many of my kind are indeed vicious. Azazel shook his head. The red-haired barbarian grinned and stared at him suspiciously. Is that so? You don't sound very convincing. Azazel was amused by the curious barbarian. My lord, can you help him first? It wouldn't be good for him to sit like this for long. The young girl suddenly interjected. The red-haired barbarian stared at the young girl, feeling a bit speechless. Aren't you afraid of him? He asked. I am, but I don't think he is an evil guy. The young girl replied. Hearing this, the red-haired barbarian chuckled. You are one interesting human. What is your name, girl? Faye. Faye, is it? I will remember you. The red-haired barbarian said before he went to help Azazel sit in a more comfortable position. Thank you. Azazel glanced at the barbarian with gratitude. You can call me Apoe. It means fire in barbarian language. Cool, right? The red-haired barbarian introduced himself with a broad grin. Amen. Azazel didn't understand him, so he just nodded his head. An unusual friendship was made as they headed to North Pine Town. Faye, do you know anything about the humans who saved us? Apoe asked the young girl. Hearing this, Faye nodded as she replied. Yes. They mentioned that they are from House Silversword. It is a small barony in the northern region of the Empire. Although she was an illegitimate child, she was still the daughter of a viscount, so she had some knowledge about the most prominent figures in the north. She told them everything she knew about House Silversword. Chapter 290, title at the end. While they were in the middle of a conversation, the carriage that was transporting them suddenly stopped. Everyone craned their necks to take a look at the situation. Just then, a warrior who had introduced himself as Arthur came to them and said, "We will temporarily be stopping here to get some rest. Please step out of the carriage to help us with some tasks." No one complained about the arrangement, and they all quietly stepped out of the carriage. After everyone had alighted, a young girl approached Arthur with a hesitant look. Sir." Arthur turned his head and saw her fidgeting nervously. He found her pitiful, so he asked with a smile, "How can I help you?" Seeing that he was easy to talk to, Faye no longer hesitated. She pointed at Azazel, who was still inside the carriage, and asked, "What about him, sir? Is he not allowed to go out?" Arthur frowned upon hearing this. Everyone in the group was wary of the demon kin, including William, who was the only transcendent knight present. Thinking about this, he shook his head firmly. "I'm sorry, but I'm afraid that he has to stay there." Faye's shoulders drooped when she heard his cold response. "But..." She wanted to explain herself, but Arthur raised his hand and said, "Please understand my difficulties. Faye, there is no need to force them." The red-haired barbarian, Apoe, came to dissuade the girl. He knew that everyone would find it hard to trust a demon kin. Even for himself, who had interacted with Azazel, he still found it unbelievable. What more about the others who hadn't spoken with him? Faye sighed and lowered her head. "All right." Arthur was about to leave when he heard a series of footsteps behind him. "What happened here?" "Sir William." Arthur immediately gave the old warrior a salute. William smiled kindly and waved his hand. He looked at them and asked, "So can someone tell me what's going on here?" Arthur hesitated. "This..." Before he could speak, Faye approached William and spoke with a pleading tone. "Sir, please allow Lord Azazel to step out of the carriage. He couldn't sit comfortably because of his restraints, and he hasn't eaten anything since we left. He is not an evil person." William smiled faintly at the young girl. What a naive child. To think that she would still have a kind heart after being betrayed by her own father. Now, she is speaking up for a demon kin who she hadn't even known for a long time. The old transcendent knight gently tapped the young girl's head. "All right. He can come out of the carriage and eat with the group, but I can't remove his restraints." As long as the demon kin was restrained, it wouldn't be an issue. Hearing this, Faye's eyes lit up. "Thank you, sir. Thank you for agreeing to her request, sir. I promise to keep an eye on the demon kin." "You have my word." William chuckled. "No problem." He then sent Arthur a look and said, "Guard them well." Arthur acknowledged the command with a salute. "Yes, sir." While Arthur was escorting the demon kin, William went to inspect the surroundings together with Fredrin and the other elite knights. "Sir, the demon kin is dangerous. Letting him out might cause us some trouble if he tries to escape," Fredrin muttered. The others didn't say anything, but they also agreed with his words. "I understand your worries. I'm also afraid of that demon kin, but if he truly wanted to escape, he would have already done it earlier. Those chains might be able to restrain a normal transcendent knight, but for a demon kin like him, destroying them wouldn't be an issue." He had sensed the overwhelming mana the demon kin possessed, and it was something that surpassed his own. Fredrin and the others were stunned by his words. "If what you said is true, then why did he not try to escape?" Vaughn asked with a look of confusion. The others were also curious about this. William shook his head. We all have stories to tell, and that demonkin is no different. If you are that curious, why don't you ask him yourself? Vaughn was speechless by his response. At this moment, Arthur had already brought Azazel to the temporary camp where all the other rescued people were gathered. As soon as they arrived, most people left in a hurry. There were a few who stayed, but they moved further from Azazel, clearly out of fear. Wait here. I will bring you guys some food, Arthur said before he walked away to get their food. After he left, Faye looked at Azazel with pity and asked, Are you all right, my lord? Do you want us to help you sit more comfortably? Azazel glanced at the young girl. He had never received this kind of care from anyone before, not even from his own family. I'm fine. Thank you. Faye smiled faintly. I see. That's good to hear. Apoe chuckled and remarked teasingly. Look at you acting so tough. Azazel didn't say anything and just closed his eyes, pretending that he didn't hear him. Apoe's smile stiffened upon seeing this. He felt that this demonkin was way different than what was told to them about demonkins. His curiosity towards Azazel increased, making him more interested in getting to know more about him. Hey, Azazel. He called out, disregarding honorifics. Azazel opened his eyes and looked at the barbarian. What is it? Apoe stared deeply at him and asked. What do you plan to do if House Silversword decides to set you free? Hearing this, Faye, who was listening, perked her ears. Azazel was taken aback, not because he was surprised by the question, but because he couldn't give him an answer. After about 10 seconds of silence, he shook his head. I also don't know, but do you really think that they will allow a demonkin to roam freely? You make a good point. Apoe shrugged. If it was me, I would definitely lock you up to prevent my people from panicking. How could you say that, Lord Apoe? Lord Azazel is a kind man. He will never hurt anyone. Faye was dissatisfied with Apoe's casual remarks. Apoe forced out a smile, but he didn't say anything. What a naive girl. With this kind of mindset, it would be easy for others to fool her. Faye, you must not blindly trust other people. What they show you might not be their true self. They could be hiding their sinister side beneath their fake smiles. Azazel sternly warned the young girl. Faye looked at him in surprise. This was the first time he had spoken to her in such a serious manner. Even you, my lord? Azazel looked away from her and stared at the horizon. Not even me. As he uttered those words, he recalled the experiences he had gone through before he arrived at this place. The people he had trusted but betrayed him, his family who had discarded him, and his friends who had tried to kill him. Everything was still fresh in his mind. Somehow, Apoe could sense the complicated emotions from his tone, but Faye was still too young to understand the implications behind the demonkin's words. Food is here. What were you guys talking about? A voice suddenly drifted into their ears. They turned around and saw Arthur holding a box filled with all sorts of food. Apoe, who had been starving since earlier, approached him with a grin. Let me help you with that, sir. Arthur didn't reject him. He handed the box to the barbarian and said, Just let me know if you need more. We have plenty of food, so there is no need to worry about not having enough to eat. Absolutely. Apoe gave him a thumbs up. The atmosphere lightened up after the food was served. Everyone happily enjoyed their meal while talking about random matters. However, this rare peace was interrupted when Azazel sensed something from the distance. This aura, someone is coming. He frowned as he looked in a certain direction. 50, 100, 200, there are more than 300 of them, and the person leading them is not to be trifled with. What happened, Lord Azazel? Is the food not to your liking? Faye asked when she noticed that Azazel had suddenly stopped eating. Apoe also looked at him with a baffled expression. Azazel didn't respond. He kept his gaze in the same direction, his eyes flashing with vigilance. Suddenly, William appeared in front of them with a whoosh. The old Transcendent Knight's expression was heavy as he muttered. Someone is coming and they don't seem to have good intentions. What? Arthur was the first one to react. With a wave of his hand, William commanded. Bring the civilians to a safe place and tell our warriors to prepare for battle. Yes, sir. Knowing that the situation was dire, Arthur didn't linger and left to inform the group. Chapter 291, a difficult maneuver to escape the three-pronged attack. You guys better stay here. Don't leave or we won't be able to protect you. Arthur warned Faye and the other rescued slaves. What's going on, sir? One of them asked with an anxious look. With a grim expression, Arthur replied. Enemies are coming, hundreds of them. That many? Everyone was stunned, disbelief written all over their faces. Sir, I will help you. Apoe volunteered, his voice filled with determination. His pride as a warrior wouldn't allow him to hide behind his benefactors. Hearing this, Arthur immediately rejected him with a shake of his head. No. Our task is to ensure your safety. I understand your willingness to help, but I can't allow you to take such risks. Apoe clenched his fists unwillingly. Arthur didn't linger and left without hesitation. After he left, Faye asked with concern, her shoulders trembling from fear. What should we do? It wasn't just her, everyone else was also afraid. It must be them. They must be warriors sent by those evil nobles. Muttered Atisha, the girl from the Black Eagle tribe. Hearing her words, everyone panicked. They had faced all sorts of abuse under the hands of those people, so they were afraid to fall into their hands once again. Don't panic. We have Sir William on our side. He is a Transcendent Knight. Even if we are outnumbered, our side has more skilled warriors. Apoe muttered, hoping to convince everyone to remain calm, but his words didn't offer much help. We can only trust them. Faye closed her eyes and brought her hands together to offer her prayers to Aru. Aru, please guide Sir William and the others. Protect them and give them strength. Seeing this, the others who followed the same religion also prayed to Aru. Meanwhile, Azazel silently assessed the strength of the enemies. 2 Transcendent Knights and 10 Elite Knights. Can they handle those warriors by themselves? His eyebrows knitted into a frown when he discovered the presence of multiple powerful warriors on the enemy side. This might be a tough battle for them. If there is no choice left, then I might have to destroy these restrictions to protect Faye and Apoe. His eyes flashed with profound light as he thought of this. At this moment, William's army had already formed a defensive line. Although the enemy attack was sudden and took them by surprise, William's troops had undergone strict military training, so they were able to hastily form this defensive maneuver. Sir, everyone is ready. Reported Geoffrey, the former captain of a mercenary group who was now William's subordinate. See Chapter 98 for reference. William nodded. He made a hand gesture and shouted. Archers, take aim and wait for my signal. Upon hearing his command, the archers immediately took aim, knocking their arrows into their bows. Soon, the enemy forces had finally entered their sights. Their vanguard unit was composed of 100 cavalrymen, while the rest were infantry soldiers. William narrowed his eyes as he silently measured the enemy's distance. Once they stepped into their archers' range, he forcefully swung his hand and shouted. Release. Sue. 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 Dozens of arrows fell from the sky, but the enemy cavalry didn't even stop their charge. They raised their shields to protect their heads. Most of them survived, but there were still some who were struck by the arrows, making them fall off from their mounts. Seeing that the enemy was undeterred by the barrage of arrows, William's gaze hardened. Continue firing your arrows. Cavalry, unsheathe your weapons and prepare to charge. He issued another command while pulling out his sword. A few more of the enemy cavalry fell, but there were still over 80 of them who weren't affected by the arrows. William no longer hesitated. He raised his sword, squeezed his legs, and bellowed. "Warriors of House Silversword, charge with me." William led the charge, urging his horse to rush towards the enemy's centermost formation. "I have to destroy their formation to give us the advantage." Thinking about this, he searched for the enemy's commander while quietly imbuing mana into his sword. "Found you." He locked his eyes on the person leading the enemy cavalry. It was a warrior wearing full steel armor. He held a spear on his right and a shield on his left. His transcendent aura burst out with overwhelming intensity. William didn't falter in the face of this formidable opponent. He raised his sword and swung it with great precision. Whoosh! Powered by his mana, this seemingly casual strike brought forth a heavy blow akin to a rampaging monster. The enemy cavalry commander snorted upon sensing his attack. He waved his spear to deflect William's sword. Clang! While the two transcendent knights exchanged blows, the two armies clashed violently. The cries of the horses and warriors echoed across the surrounding hills. At the initial clash, House Silversword held the advantage. They were properly equipped and their strong defensive formation also played a major role in helping them take the upper hand. Furthermore, there were warriors like Butch and Fredrin who were effortlessly killing enemies from left to right. Something isn't right. William sensed that something was amiss the longer he fought the enemy cavalry commander. He felt that the other party was only trying to delay him. Thinking about this, he scanned the surroundings and saw the enemy infantry soldiers approaching them from both sides, clearly intending to sandwich them. His eyes darkened and he immediately pushed off his enemy as he shouted. Spiral attack formation. It was a move that they had practiced regularly, so there was no hesitation in everyone's movements. Upon hearing his command, they immediately regrouped and attacked the enemy lines in a spiraling motion. The goal of this attack formation was to confuse the enemy and force their way into the enemy lines using the momentum of their spiraling charge. They hadn't done this in a real battle, so everyone felt a bit nervous, but surprisingly, they managed to pull off this difficult maneuver. Within a few minutes, they managed to penetrate and escape from the enemy's three-pronged attack. Chapter 292, Flee. Don't let them escape. A furious roar drifted into their ears. William could tell that it was the enemy cavalry commander, but he couldn't care less. If they stopped here, they would be besieged on all sides. Led his troops to claw their way out of the enemy lines. Don't stop. Keep your eyes forward and kill anyone who blocks our path. He shouted as he swung his sword without resting. Whoosh! Whoosh! Clang! Just then, he found himself unable to take another step as a towering figure blocked his path. It was a warrior holding a two-handed broadsword. He was dressed in a mithril-plated steel armor with a flashy red cape. William narrowed his eyes. He could sense that this guy was also a transcendent knight and he was more powerful than the cavalry commander he fought earlier. We are so close. I just need to defeat this guy so we can break through this encirclement. Thinking about this, he released a flurry of slashes and stabs. Whoosh! Whoosh! Clang! Clang! He was using an average-length sword, so he had the advantage in speed. Not bad. The other party remarked with a grin. William could see the guy's taunting smile, but he didn't let it affect his emotions. With one wrong move, his entire army would fall apart. Butch, Fredrin, lead the troops and force your way out of this encirclement. I will guard the rear. William shouted, his face looking unsightly to behold. Even with his speed advantage, he could still not land a direct hit on the other party. He didn't want to admit it, but this guy was more powerful than him. Do you think I will let you guys escape? The Transcendent Knight sneered. He then ferociously swung his broadsword in an attempt to cut off their path of retreat. However, William blocked his broadsword with a wave of his weapon. Clang! William gritted his teeth as he forcefully took the blow. His mount buckled under the immense force, almost making William lose his balance. Sir William. Fredrin and the others looked at him with concern. Don't look back. I can take out of myself. William shouted as he jumped off of his horse. Butch stared deeply at the old Transcendent Knight and gave him a nod before he took command over the troops. Have some faith in your commander. We must leave first. Charge. The warriors no longer hesitated after hearing Butch's words. They followed him as they forced their way out of the enemy encirclement. Meanwhile, William did his best to prevent the Transcendent Knight from interfering with the retreat of his troops. Clang. You guys are a bit too late. The Transcendent Knight wielding the broadsword laughed coldly. William frowned at his words. What do you mean? My comrades should have captured those slaves by now. Ha ha ha. The other party responded. William's face fell. Most of his subordinates followed him to stop the enemies. Only a few had stayed to protect the slaves. If that cavalry commander went to capture the slaves, there wouldn't be anyone who could stop him. Unless... He thought about the demon kin who was together with the slaves. He was the unstable factor who could turn this battle around, but he couldn't bring himself to trust someone from a race with a notorious reputation. Damn it. I need to get out of here. The enemies are coming. You guys retreat immediately. I will try to hold them back. Shouted Henry, who was tasked with protecting the slaves. His subordinates gritted their teeth, but they still followed his command. They took the slaves and retreated with great haste. Henry was watching them leave when the ground suddenly trembled. He turned his head and looked at the approaching army with a grave smile. A Transcendent Knight as my last opponent? A worthy final opponent for this old man. He let out a carefree laugh as he unsheathed his sword. He then squeezed his legs, urging his mount to charge forward. With unwavering determination, he rushed into the enemy's formation with only a sword in his hand. If you want to capture them, then you will have to go through me first. I always wanted to say that. Henry grinned as he swung his sword. Whoosh. Clang. A fast spear suddenly blocked his sword, causing a violent clang as their weapons collided. Henry's arms shook from the impact. Such immense power. He could feel his bones breaking, but he didn't retreat. He expertly maneuvered his mount to get some breathing room, but more enemies suddenly attacked him from all angles. Damn! Just then, a barrage of crossbow bolts flew over and killed the warriors who had surrounded him. Sir Henry, where are the others? Fredrin's voice drifted into his ears, making Henry feel a hint of relief. I told them to escape. They should have gone far enough. Henry responded. However, he discovered that there was someone missing from the enemy's side. Wait. Their commander isn't here. His face darkened when he realized the situation. His goal wasn't to kill me. His target is the slaves. Hearing his words, Fredrin and the others ignored the enemies and went to follow the tracks left by the slaves. Faster! Henry shouted anxiously. Did you guys think that you can escape from your fate? A voice filled with contempt drifted into the slaves' ears. Everyone fearfully turned their heads. Behind them was a warrior holding a spear and a shield. The aura exuded was so intense that it forced some of them to collapse. That guy is a Transcendent Knight. Apoe gritted his teeth. He quickly grabbed Faye and positioned himself in front of her. You guys flee. We will deal with him. The warriors who were escorting them rushed toward the Transcendent Knight without hesitation. Feudal resistance. The spear-wielding Transcendent Knight laughed coldly as he brandished his spear. In one move, 3 warriors were decapitated. The scene made the slaves terrified. Some of them cried on the spot, while the others trembled with fear. At this moment, Azazel, who was silent the entire time, suddenly whispered. Apoe, please protect Faye. Chapter 293, Azazel's overwhelming physical strength. Huh? Apoe glanced at the demon kin in surprise. Just as he was about to respond, he saw something shocking. Azazel applied strength in his arms to break the chains that had restrained him. Clang. The broken chains produced clanging sounds as they fell to the ground. You. Apoe subconsciously took a few steps back and pulled Faye with him. Azazel ignored him and focused his attention on the spear-wielding Transcendent Knight. How did you destroy those mithril chains? The spear-wielding Transcendent Knight was stunned upon seeing this. Even for himself, he wouldn't be able to break such durable material with just his physical strength. His face changed and he quickly adjusted his fighting posture while keeping his eyes on Azazel. You are a threat to my friend's safety, so I have to eliminate you, Azazel spoke in a calm tone, but his words made the Transcendent Knight feel a chill. In the next moment, the Demonkin's figure blurred as he disappeared all of a sudden. Where is he? Sweat trickled down the Transcendent Knight's face as he tried to track the Demonkin's presence, but he was unable to find him. Suddenly, he felt an oppressive force behind him. He instinctively raised his shield to protect himself. Bang! He found himself flying away after somehow blocking that attack. To stabilize himself in midair, he twisted his body at an unnatural angle. However, before he could land, he saw the Demonkin beneath him preparing another punch. Damn! He quickly stabbed out his spear to stop the other party from attacking him in his descent. Whoosh! Azazel calmly evaded his spear with a turn of his body. He then used the momentum of his turn to deliver a powerful kick that made the air tremble due to the intense force he had released. Bang! The Transcendent Knight wasn't able to defend himself this time and was struck directly in his chest. He crashed into a nearby giant tree and made it shake from the impact. Leaves and twigs fell upon the Transcendent Knight, who was gasping for breath. The kick was so powerful that it broke his ribs and punctured his lungs. What insanely strong physical strength. He didn't even use mana in that kick, but it almost got me killed. He stood up with great difficulty, using his spear as a crutch. Blood leaked out from the corner of his lips. He raised his head and looked at the Demonkin with trepidation. I'm not his opponent. I must flee. Thinking about this, his body burst forth with mana as he attempted to escape with a quick dash. However, Azazel was faster than him. In just a blink of an eye, he managed to outrun the severely injured Transcendent Knight. No! Wait! The man shouted in fear when he saw the Demonkin suddenly appearing in front of him like a ghost. Azazel ignored his pleas and released a punch imbued with mana. Whoosh! Crash! The man's head was smashed like a sledgehammer hitting a watermelon. Thud! Under everyone's shocked gazes, the Transcendent Knight lifelessly fell to the ground. Henry and the others also timely arrived and witnessed this scene. How did he break those mithril chains? Fredrin frowned, his muscles tightening. Some of the warriors were prepared to engage when Butch raised his hand to stop them from making a move. Sir Butch, that Demonkin is dangerous. We can't let him roam freely without restraints. Fredrin muttered, his dominant hand still resting on the hilt of his sword. Butch responded while pointing at the Demonkin. Can't you see it? He saved those people, including our brothers. Fredrin furrowed his eyebrows. He wasn't blind, but he had trouble trusting a Demonkin. It wasn't just him, most of the warriors looked tense. Butch noticed the heavy atmosphere, so he immediately gave them an instruction to shift their attention. Gather the civilians and take them into a safe place. After a moment of hesitation, the warriors finally responded. Yes, sir. They rushed to the civilians who were still reeling in shock and inspected their condition. Meanwhile, Butch approached Azazel, who was standing in front of the Transcendent Knight's corpse. Everyone nervously watched him as he walked closer to the Demonkin. The warriors held their weapons with sharp gazes. If the Demonkin did something suspicious, they would immediately attack him. However, no such thing happened. He just stood still, looking unblinkingly in a certain direction. Butch stopped at about 2 meters from him and expressed his gratitude. Thank you for protecting the civilians and my comrades. Azazel was silent for a moment before he opened his mouth. The old man named William is in danger. Hearing this, the faces of Butch and the other warriors fell. What did you say? Exclaimed Jeffrey, the former mercenary captain. I can help him. Azazel calmly turned his head to Butch, as if waiting for his answer. Butch stared deeply at him and cupped his fists. Please save our commander. Everyone stared at him in surprise. They didn't expect Butch to place his trust in the demon kin without hesitation. Azazel nodded his head. There are more enemies approaching. Please protect those two while I'm gone. He pointed to Faye and Apoe while making this request. Butch nodded. You can rest assured. We will protect everyone here since that is our job. Azazel no longer lingered after hearing his words. He disappeared with a whoosh. Seeing this, Faye brought her hands together and made another prayer. On the other hand, Butch told everyone to prepare for battle. Enemies are coming to our left. Protect the civilians and don't let those bastards get close. He shouted. Yes, sir. Half a minute later, they saw almost 100 warriors charging towards them while roaring aggressively. Most of them were infantry soldiers, while the rest were cavalrymen. Seeing them, Butch raised his halberd and bellowed. Kill them all. He led a group of about 30 warriors to engage with the enemies. Butch squeezed his legs, urging his horse to move ahead of the formation. He then lifted his halberd and swung it with incredible force. Chapter 294, Mission Update. Whoosh! That seemingly simple swing carried tremendous momentum that caused the air to twist. 6 unlucky warriors had their bodies cut in half without even being able to react. Upon witnessing his strength, 2 elite knights immediately rushed over to him in an attempt to stop him from causing more casualties. They imbued mana into their weapons and attacked Butch without holding back. Seeing this, Butch snorted beneath his mask. He pulled his halberd to protect himself. Clang! Clang! After blocking their weapons, he pulled his halberd and slammed it into one of the elite knights. Bang! The poor fellow's head burst like a broken piñata. His blood and brain matter splattered all over Butch's armor. What? The other elite knight was horrified at the abrupt death of his comrade. Everything happened so fast that he only realized what had happened after his comrade's corpse fell to the ground. Who are you? He tried to buy himself some time, but Butch ignored him and released another powerful swing. Whoosh! KHKKSHK. The elite knight's body was cut vertically in half. With the death of the 2 elite knights, the enemy's formation quickly crumbled. Butch and the others took the chance to eliminate them while they were still in a state of confusion. In just a few minutes, dozens of veteran warriors were killed under their relentless assault. Make sure that they are dead. Butch issued a command in a stern voice. Yes, sir. Apoe and the rest of the rescued slaves were in awe of their terrifying power. Amazing. So this is the famous army of House Silversword. Everyone discussed between themselves in hushed voices. Meanwhile, on the other side of the battlefield, William was already reaching his limits. There was a powerful transcendent knight and a group of veteran warriors besieging him in all directions. Even with his skills, he couldn't keep up with this many enemies. As the battle dragged on, his exhaustion slowly caught up and it was evident on his weary face. My mana is nearing a dangerous level. The old transcendent knight breathed heavily while keeping his eyes on the most dangerous foe, the broadsword-wielding transcendent knight. As long as I can injure that guy, I will be able to escape this place. Thinking about this, he quietly gathered his remaining mana into his sword for one final struggle. Just give up and surrender your life to me. I promise to give you a quick death. The towering transcendent knight spoke with a broad grin. William ignored his taunting remarks and continued to silently inject his mana into his sword. The towering transcendent knight clicked his tongue, somewhat annoyed by his lack of response. He then made a hand gesture as he commanded his subordinates. Kill him. As soon as he gave the command, the warriors around William immediately pounced upon him like a pack of hungry wolves. William had no choice but to defend himself, but just as he was about to make a move, a terrifying aura suddenly descended from the sky. The broadsword-wielding Transcendent Knight frowned when he sensed this energy. He raised his head and saw a shadow descending like a meteor. "Watch out above you," he warned his men, but it was already too late. The shadow struck the ground with overwhelming force. Boom! Rocks and soil flew in every direction, obscuring everyone's vision. When the towering Transcendent Knight recovered his sense of sight, he found out that his subordinates had already been killed. Furthermore, standing before him was the demon kin with his mithril chains removed. "You! How did you?" His eyes flashed with disbelief. He was part of the group who had captured this demon kin, so he was aware of the power this being possessed. "Last time, we needed 3 Transcendent Knights and a team of elite knights to corner this guy. Fighting it by myself is suicide." Sweat trickled down the man's face as he looked at the demon kin. Knowing that he wouldn't be able to defeat this creature, his only choice was to retreat. He raised his hand and shouted to his men. "Everyone, retreat." Forcing a fight with this demon kin wouldn't end well for them, so he decisively chose to order a retreat. Before leaving, he sent William a deep look and said, "The Grand Duke's mansion will remember this humiliation." He then turned around and urged his mount to flee. Azazel didn't give chase. To him, the life and death of those humans held no significance. "Thank you." A weak voice drifted into his ears. He turned around and saw William standing unsteadily, clearly exhausted from the battle. "We must leave now. Those people might return with reinforcements, so we need to get going," Azazel calmly remarked. William nodded his head. "I know." Seeing that he was having trouble walking, Azazel decided to lend him a hand. Although a bit afraid of the demon kin, the old Transcendent Knight didn't reject his help. "I owe you for this." "Don't mention it." Alaric was about to look for Maria when a sudden notification from the system appeared in front of him. _____. Mission adjustments, save the captured barbarians. Mission difficulty, normal, hard. The people behind the Crimson Tower were dissatisfied with your actions, so they sent a few hundred warriors to destroy William's army and take back the slaves they had rescued. Protect the rescued slaves and ensure the safety of the barbarians. Additional rewards: 1,000 battle points, 50 EXP, random trait upgrade card. _____. Alaric was taken aback. The mission information has been updated? This had also happened to him once before during the battle against the Goblin colony in the Enchanted Woodlands. So the mission details and difficulty could also change depending on the situation. When he realized this, his expression became grim. "Let us put this matter aside for now. I need to speak with Mom first." Alaric closed the cyan screen with a thought and adjusted his emotions. He took a deep breath and gathered his thoughts before he went to continue searching for Maria. Chapter 295, Unexpected Potential. "Son, is there something you need?" Maria smiled faintly at Alaric. She had the same loving smile she always had, but something was a bit different about her today. Alaric could see a tinge of sadness and anxiety in her eyes. Alaric pretended that he didn't notice anything and greeted her with a smile. "I just want to check on my pregnant mother and see how she is doing." Maria's eyes faltered upon hearing this. She let out a soft sigh and muttered, "But I am not your..." Before she could continue her words, Alaric gently hugged her and whispered in a quivering voice, "You will always be my mom. That will never change." Maria had always treated him like her own son, and she had never despised him for this even once. With the sacrifices she made and the silent pain she endured all these years, Alaric couldn't even begin to imagine it. Unknowingly, tears slid down from the corners of his eyes. Maria's selfless actions made him emotional. Maria noticed that he was crying, so she gently rubbed his back. "I'm so happy to hear that, my son." Alaric never thought that he would cry like this again after his regression. The mother and son chatted for hours. They talked about the past and the future that they looked forward to. "Son, how about you go and visit your grandfather again?" Maria changed the topic. Hearing her mention this, Alaric furrowed his eyebrows. Is he still there? He asked. Maria nodded with a long sigh. Ever since he came to North Pine Town, he had never missed a day. She was getting increasingly worried about her father's health. She tried to talk with him about it, but he never listened and continued to visit Mount Tedra every day. Alaric was also aware of this. He had even sent his subordinates to look after the old man in case something happened. Anton Keller had always blamed himself for the warriors who had died in Copperglade. He felt that he was fully responsible for everything. Because of his extreme guilt, he visited their tombs on top of Mount Tedra to kneel and apologize to them. He had never missed a day since he arrived in North Pine Town. All right. I will talk with him later. Alaric nodded and reassured his mother. After some small talk, Alaric bid Maria farewell and stepped out of the mansion. My lord, where are you headed to? Elena's voice suddenly drifted into his ears. Alaric turned around and saw her going down the stairs in a hurry. Seeing this, he immediately reminded her to be careful. That was dangerous, Elena. You could have hurt yourself. Alaric gave her a stern look. The girl gave him a cheeky smile and replied. I will not do it again, my lord. Hee hee. Alaric rubbed her head and intentionally made her hair messy. I will have to punish you if you do that again. My lord, my hair. Looking at her face, he realized that she looked more mature now. You should start acting like an adult, Elena. You are almost of age now. He chuckled with a teasing look. Hearing this, she recalled the promise they had made when they were young and it made her cheeks flush in embarrassment. She was a bit nervous to continue with the conversation, so she changed the topic. Why, you still haven't answered my question, my lord. Alaric was amused when he saw her acting all shy and embarrassed. I will go to Mount Tedra to see Grandpa. He replied. Oh. Do you want me to go with you, my lord? Elena asked. She had been to the sacred mountain quite often, so she was also aware of Anton's situation. Alaric shrugged and responded casually. If you want to. It would take a few thousand steps to reach the top of the sacred mountain, so even the family members of the warriors buried in the mountain would only visit once or twice a month. I don't get easily tired now, my lord. Sometimes I would join the warriors do physical exercises on the training ground. I'm strong now. She flexed her thin biceps while saying this, making her look quite comical. Alaric laughed while shaking his head. Do you want to use appraisal on the selected target? Yes, no. Alaric wanted to see if she was telling the truth, so he decided to use appraisal on her. Now that I think about it, I haven't checked her attributes yet. Let's see if this girl has some hidden skills somewhere. Thinking about this, Alaric clicked, yes. Elena, Ordinary, EXP, December 25th. Potential, S. Traits, Cooking, S. Farming, B. Tailoring, A. Tea making, E. Laundry, B. Painting, E. Swordsmanship, F. Strength, 6. Stamina, 8. Agility, 4. Vitality, 5. Endurance, 3. Mana, 10. Alaric was stunned when he saw her attributes. She had a bunch of housework-related traits, but surprisingly, she had an F-rank swordsmanship trait. However, the most shocking thing was her S-rated potential. No way. My lord, why are you looking at me like that? Is there something on my face? Elena asked when she saw Alaric staring at her with an unusual gaze. Alaric faked a cough and looked away from her. It's nothing. Did you learn swordsmanship from someone? He randomly asked. How did she learn swordsmanship this fast? I didn't even see her train. Elena was surprised. How did you know, my lord? I told Aaliyah not to tell anyone, including you. She realized that she had misspoken, so she quickly covered her mouth. Alaric glanced at her. So you were secretly learning from Aaliyah? yes. Knowing that she couldn't hide the matter anymore, she could only nod her head. I didn't mean to hide it from you, my lord. I just want to give you a bit of surprise. This girl. Alaric smiled at her words. You do have potential, but are you sure about learning swordsmanship? Elena put on a serious look as she replied. Yes. I also want to protect you, my lord. I always feel uncomfortable every time you leave the town, so I decided to learn swordsmanship from Aaliyah. Chapter 296, Convincing Anton. You must have worked really hard to convince a stubborn girl like Aaliyah to teach you. Alaric smiled faintly. He could already imagine the difficulties she faced just to get Aaliyah to teach her swordsmanship. Elena pouted upon hearing this. I did a lot of things just to make her teach me. She murmured resentfully. Elena's shocking potential came as a surprise, but Alaric was worried about letting her join the army. Their next battles would only get more dangerous and he didn't want her to go through that kind of hell. Elena, since you have chosen to learn swordsmanship, do you intend to join the army? He stared deeply at her with a grave look on his face. Looking at his serious expression, Elena responded cautiously. If it's necessary, then I don't mind joining the army, my lord. She could tell that Alaric was worried for her, making her feel a wave of warmth in her heart. Elena, war is cruel. You might have to kill someone if you choose to join the army. Are you prepared for that? Alaric's voice drifted over. That. Her face turned pale, but she clenched her fists and looked at him with determination. She had already thought of this when she decided to learn swordsmanship. To protect Alaric, she knew that there might come a time when she would need to kill someone. She was afraid of seeing blood, but if it was for her lord's safety, she would do anything. I won't hesitate to kill someone to protect you, my lord. Alaric was moved by her words. It must have taken a lot of courage for her to say those words. After all, she was such a scaredy cat. He gently rubbed her head. Since you have already thought it through, then I won't stop you. However, you need to keep in mind that your safety must be your number one priority. Do you understand? Looking at his handsome face, Elena shyly lowered her head. Yes, my lord. The two chatted about random topics as they ascended the sacred mountain. By the time they arrived at the top of the mountain, half an hour had already passed by. Alaric saw his grandfather kneeling before the tombs of the fallen warriors. Anton Keller had slimmed down considerably. He was no longer the energetic old man that he was a few months ago. His skin had visibly darkened and he had more wrinkles in his face. Alaric frowned when he saw the old man's condition. Keep quiet and follow me, he told Elena. Elena nodded and followed him silently. The warriors who were secretly watching over the old man revealed themselves to greet Alaric. My lord. My lord. Alaric made a shushing gesture and waved his hand. The warriors understood his intentions, so they turned around and quietly left. Alaric slowly walked towards Anton while sweeping his gaze towards each tomb. He sighed when he recalled the faces of those who had died. He stopped behind Anton and softly called out. Grandpa. Anton opened his eyes when he heard his voice. He turned around and forced a smile. My grandson. What are you doing here in the middle of the day? Alaric stared at him with concern and said. Grandpa, I am sure that these warriors have already felt your sincere apology. There is no need for you to visit here every day. You will only hurt yourself if you continue doing this. Anton shook his head. It was because of me that they died. I deserve this. The old man's voice was filled with remorse. Alaric sighed at his response. Mom is worried about your health. She is pregnant, so it might not be good. What did you say? Anton raised his eyebrows. Mom is worried about your health. No, not that one. I said she is pregnant. It wouldn't be good for her health and the baby if she has a lot on her mind. Alaric could only use this tactic to convince his grandfather. Anton felt a multitude of emotions. So my daughter is pregnant? No one informed him about this, so he was shocked by the news. Alaric nodded and smiled. Amen. According to the doctors, it will be a girl. Anton suddenly became emotional. So I will be getting a granddaughter soon. Grandpa, if you want to watch your granddaughter grow up, you must keep your body healthy. Alaric gently tapped the old man's shoulders before he helped him to get up. Hearing this, Anton imagined himself carrying his granddaughter and he couldn't help but let out a smile. You are not lying to me, right? Anton glanced at Alaric inquisitively. Alaric chuckled and shook his head. Of course not. If you don't believe me, you can ask Mom or Dad. Fine. I will go and ask them. Anton feebly walked away. He had kneeled for a few hours, so his knees were incredibly sore right now. Alaric quickly followed and lent him a hand. Grandpa, let me bring you there. You might fall down the stairs. Anton didn't reject his offer. He might indeed fall given how weak his knees were as of the moment. Elena and the warriors quietly followed them. They hadn't even reached halfway down the mountain and Alaric noticed that Anton's legs were shaking, so he decided to carry the old man. Anton stared at Alaric and thought. My grandson is no longer the rebellious youngster that he was a few years ago. Who would have thought that the little kid from back then would become such a reliable man? He mumbled with a gratified smile. You are making me embarrassed, Grandpa. Alaric chuckled at the old man's words. A while later, they finally arrived in front of the mansion. Anton, who had been carried all the way, quickly jumped off from Alaric's arms and eagerly stepped inside the mansion. Seeing the depressed old man look so excited made Alaric and Elena feel relieved. My daughter, where are you? Anton's excited voice echoed inside the mansion, making the servants do a double take in surprise. Chapter 297, Alaric meets Azazel. After Anton learned his daughter was pregnant, he no longer climbed the sacred mountain as he had in the past few weeks. He became more conscious of his health and even participated in some physical activity to keep himself fit. 5 days later, the troops sent to Copperglade finally returned with the people they rescued from the Crimson Tower. Alaric had already received a letter about the events that happened in the city, but he still told William to give him a report of the situation. William recounted everything that occurred without skipping any details. That was what happened, my lord. Alaric frowned as he rubbed his chin. To think that the Grand Duke is actually involved with this kind of illegal activities. The Grand Duke was a member of the imperial family and he wielded immense power and authority within the empire. So why did he risk his reputation to establish the Crimson Tower? Alaric thought hard, but he couldn't understand why the Grand Duke made such a choice. He sent William a look and asked. Have you guys found out if the second prince is also behind the Crimson Tower? William shook his head. I have sent a few of my men to investigate in the capital, but it would take some time before they could get any information. Alaric already expected this. Information related to the imperial family was difficult to obtain, so he didn't blame William for it. All right. Now for the next matter, where is the demonkin? When he first read the letter that there was a demonkin among the rescued slaves, he couldn't believe it. Those guys were hardly discovered in the enchanted woodlands since they lived on the opposite side of this seemingly endless forest. Hearing this, William made a hand gesture to the warrior standing quietly behind him. Seeing his signal, the warrior saluted and left the room. A moment later, he returned with someone wearing a cloak that made it hard for others to see their appearance. My lord, this is the demonkin who saved our lives. His name is Azazel. William gave him a short introduction. Azazel removed his hood and revealed his appearance to Alaric. Greetings, my lord. The demonkin cupped his fists to show his respect. Azazel had been curious about the heir of House Silversword after hearing stories about him from the warriors and the rescued slaves. Now that he had seen Alaric, he was a bit surprised. This guy is much younger than I thought. Alaric narrowed his eyes upon seeing the demonkin's appearance. He carried all the features mentioned in the history books about demonkins. He wasn't simply a halfling, but a pure-blooded demonkin. Please sit. Alaric motioned him to sit down. Hearing this, Azazel looked at the chair he had pointed and calmly took his seat. First, I would like to thank you for saving the warriors of my house Silversword. Alaric expressed his gratitude while sneakily using his appraisal on him. Azazel, Transcendent Knight, EXP, 3499/5000. Potential, S. Traits, Devour, SS, Fast Recovery, S. Berserk, S. Close Combat, S. Hunting, S. Assassination, S. Tracking, A. Horseback Riding, A. Danger Perception, B. Strength, 397. Stamina, 309. Agility, 369. Endurance, 205. Vitality, 217. Mana, 250. His attributes were almost the same as Galanor's. Alaric was shocked, but he didn't show it to his face. I was only returning the favor. You don't need to thank me for it. Azazel shook his head and waved his hand. Are Demunkins supposed to be this polite? Alaric stared deeply at Azazel. This guy seemed to be different than most Demunkins described in the history books. Is there something that you want? You can ask me anything. As long as it is within my reach, then I will get it for you. Azazel shook his head. I don't need any material things, but there is one thing that I hope you can do for me. Alaric raised an eyebrow. Oh. Please tell me. Azazel took a deep breath before he replied. I hope that you will protect Faye and give her a stable life. She is a girl neglected by her family, so I'm afraid that it would be hard for her to adapt to a different environment. I hope that you can promise me this. Faye? Alaric furrowed his eyebrows. He vaguely remembered reading that name from William's report. All right. That is a simple matter. I already planned on giving those rescued from the Crimson Tower a stable source of income and temporary accommodation. You can rest assured. He said with a faint smile. Thank you for granting my request. Azazel cupped his fists and lowered his head to express his gratitude. Alaric waved his hand. It is something that I should do. There was a brief moment of silence after that, and it was Alaric who broke the silence with another question. What are your plans now, Sir Azazel? Azazel was stumped by this question. He thought for a while, but he still couldn't come up with an answer. To be honest, I don't know what to do. He truthfully said. Alaric smiled upon hearing this. How about this? You can stay in the town for a month to look for your answer. Once the month ends, you will visit me again to give your answer. This demonkin has an S-rank potential and an array of high-rated traits. Getting him to join the household would be awesome, but I can't be forceful about it. Alaric planned to get him attached to the town. Once the 1-month limit he gave was over, Azazel would find it hard to leave. Azazel hesitated, but when he thought about Faye and Apoe, he eventually nodded his head. All right. I will stay in the town for a month. Good. Alaric was pleased with his response. He turned his head to William and instructed him. Sir William, I will let you handle Sir Azazel's arrangements, but you must remember not to disclose his identity to the public. Do you understand? Demunkins were synonymous with evil and destruction, so they had to be careful lest they alert the residents. Chapter 298, Azazel's Observations. After chatting with the demonkin, Alaric told William to bring the rescued barbarians inside. There were 5 barbarians in total. 3 looked like they were teens and the other 2 were adults. I am sorry for the terrible experiences you had gone through. I feel ashamed as a resident of Estania. Alaric didn't want the Empire's relationship with the barbarian tribes to be strained, so he apologized to them. You don't need to apologize, my lord. You are not at fault for this. If it weren't for the warriors you sent, we would have become slaves for those treacherous nobles. Apoe sighed while shaking his head. The barbarians seated next to him nodded in agreement. They were grateful to Alaric, who had sent his warriors to rescue them. This is something that I should. He chatted with the barbarians while secretly inspecting their attributes. Two of them caught his attention. The first one was the young girl from the Black Eagle tribe. Her name was Ada Shah. She had incredible potential and she already possessed the strength of a knight at such a young age. If she was a resident of the Empire, she would definitely be treated as an unparalleled genius. The other one who caught his interest was the red-haired barbarian named Apoi. He wasn't that old and he had already stepped into the realm of elite knight. He also possessed high-rated traits and his attributes were off the charts for someone at his level. If he were to compare Apoi with someone, the guy's strength was just a bit weaker than Arthur's. The northern households are very tense right now because of the Crimson Tower incident, so it would be difficult for you guys to return to your homes during this period. Alaric couldn't afford to be careless about this matter. The barbarians looked downcast upon hearing his words. They had been away from their homes for several months, so they missed their families. Seeing the look on their faces, Alaric reassured them. Do not worry. I will prepare a capable escort team to send you back home while we wait for the situation to subside. In the meantime, we can send letters to your family to inform them that you are safe. The barbarians looked invigorated when they heard this. We will follow your arrangements, my lord. No one declined his offer as it was in their best interest. After a heartfelt conversation with the barbarians, he instructed someone to arrange their accommodations. Now that all that has been resolved, I can finally relax a bit. 1 week later, outside the Beast Garden. Faye, that is the Beast Garden. All of the tamed monsters of the households are kept there, so you better not recklessly trespass that place. Elena warned with a stern look on her face. Faye looked nervous when she heard this. I understand. Relax. Elena chuckled when she saw how nervous she was. There is a strong warrior looking after the Beast Garden, so even if there is an accident, it will be handled right away. She explained. Hearing this, Faye's expression eased up. That's good. At this moment, an old man dressed in simple clothes suddenly caught her attention. Elena, who is that gentleman? She asked in a whispering tone while sneakily pointing at the old man. Elena followed her gaze and was surprised to see the old man. Sir Cassius. Cassius, who had long since discovered them, smiled faintly at her greeting. Good day, Miss Elena. Cassius is a retired elite knight and he was briefly mentioned in CH 269. After greeting the old man, Elena introduced Faye to him. Sir Cassius, this is Faye. She is one of the people rescued by Sir William's troops in Copperglade. Cassius revealed a look of pity when he heard this. Although he had mostly stayed in the Beast Garden, he was still aware of the expeditions of the household's army. He had heard about the recent trip to Copperglade from one of his closest friends. I see. The old man chatted with the two young ladies before he excused himself. Elena, is that person the powerful elite knight you mentioned earlier? Faye asked curiously. Elena nodded as she replied. Amen. While the two girls were chatting along the way, there was a cloaked figure secretly following them. It was Azazel. It has been a week since they arrived in the town and he could already see how different it was compared to other territories. The people here didn't need to worry about their safety since the warriors of House Silversword regularly roamed the streets to deter evil-intentioned people from committing crimes. Other than the town's safety, the residents also didn't need to pay a big tax. The system here was different and there was no sign of corruption, at least from what he had seen so far. Faye should be fine here on her own. She had even found a friend in just a short amount of time. He was proud to see the once pitiful little girl find her own happiness. However, there was just one thing that he was worried about. The retaliation of the aristocrats behind the Crimson Tower. Given House Silversword's military power, they certainly had the means to dominate the north. But in the face of numerous noble houses, even such a powerful household would be destroyed. I will stay for a while more and make my decision before the time limit that Lord Alaric had stipulated. He thought to himself. While he was following the two ladies, he belatedly found out that they were heading back to the main mansion. Just then, a giant suddenly appeared before him and raised his hand, gesturing for him not to take another step. The main mansion is off-limits for outsiders. Azazel realized his mistake, so he cupped his fists in apology. I understand. He then turned around and left without hesitation. Other than the mysterious baron whose power he couldn't discern, he felt that the giant warrior was incredibly dangerous. What was his name again? Oh, right. It's Galliner. Chapter 299, Wedding Day. Another week passed by since Azazel and the others had arrived in the town. Alaric had finally assembled a capable team to escort the rescued barbarians back to their homes. It wasn't a big team, but they were composed of the strongest warriors of House Silversword. For this task, all 10 of you have been chosen. Sir Galliner will take the lead and Sir Warwick will be the deputy. Alaric announced while looking at the people gathered before him. Other than the 2 transcendent knights, Butch, Fredrin, Arthur, Henry, and Franklin were also part of the escort team. At the same time, the remaining 3 members were newly advanced elite knights. A team of this caliber could already dominate a small territory, but this was necessary to ensure the safety of the barbarians. Most importantly, Alaric didn't want any mistake to happen again. We will never forget the care you have given us, my lord. Opoe lowered his head to express his gratitude. In the past 2 weeks, Alaric had provided them with everything they needed. He even took his time to make sure that they were doing well. Ada Shah, who was usually arrogant and unapproachable, bowed her head. My lord, if you have the time, please visit our Black Eagle tribe. If it weren't for this man and his soldiers, she couldn't even begin to imagine what kind of fate she would have had to endure. The rest of the barbarians also expressed their gratefulness. Alaric smiled and waved his hand. You have already thanked me enough. It is about time that you leave. I hope you have a safe trip home. Farewell, my lord. The barbarians bid him farewell. Opoe then approached Azazel and Faye, who were standing behind Alaric, and said his goodbyes to them. I hope this won't be our last meeting. Opoe grinned at them. If it's destined, we will definitely see each other again. Azazel calmly spoke. I will miss you, Lord Opoe. Please take care of yourself, said Faye, who looked reluctant to see him leave. After exchanging their final goodbyes, Opoe and the others left via horseback together with the escort team. Everyone watched them leave with indescribable emotions. Azazel noticed Faye's sorrow, so he tapped her shoulders and said, Don't worry, you will see them again. Faye sighed while looking at the disappearing figures in the distance. I hope so. After the barbarians left, nothing significant happened in the following days. Everything continued as per usual. Visitors from various parts of the empire flooded the town, which attracted numerous business-minded individuals to come. These merchants felt that North Pine Town would soon become a big territory with the union of House Silversword and House Paxley. At this moment, Alaric was playing chess with his cousin, Princess Irish, in his study. You have improved a lot, cousin, praised the princess as she beamed at Alaric. Now that Alaric was already aware of his true identity, she no longer acted distant to him. She even occasionally teased him, making their friendship stronger. Alaric helplessly shook his head. Your Highness, surely you jest. If I had really improved, how come I still cannot defeat you? Princess Irish chuckled and replied in a teasing voice. That is because you are still not skilled enough to beat me. Looking at how smug she was, Alaric could only shake his head helplessly with a wry smile. A few minutes later, the game ended in his defeat. Alaric slumped into his seat and raised his hands as he muttered. I am not playing with you anymore. Ha ha ha. Do not worry, cousin. You will definitely defeat me one day, probably. The princess snickered. Enough about that. Are you sure that you can stay here for such a long time? You have been away from the capital for over a month now. Alaric immediately changed the topic to save himself from embarrassment. Princess Irish crossed her arms and snorted. You have nothing to worry about. My brothers want nothing more than for me to leave the capital. Even if I stay here for several months, I am sure that they will not say anything about it. Alaric understood the implications behind her words, so he just remained silent. Besides, how could I miss my cousin's wedding? Unless you do not want me there. The princess sent Alaric a deep look. Alaric shook his head and replied with a stiff smile. How could that be? I will be honored to have you at my wedding. It hadn't been long since they had gotten to know each other, but it felt like they had been friends for years. As you should. The princess smirked. Otherwise, you will not be getting any gifts from me. Do not be so petty, Your Highness. I am sure I told you to call me by my name when there is no one else around. I am still not used to it. Then you better get used to it soon. Why yes. Time passed unknowingly and the event that everyone had been waiting for had finally arrived. It was the day of the wedding and the venue was already packed with guests. Some even had to stand up due to the lack of seats, but no one complained. With the princess around, only an idiot would dare to cause trouble. Everyone quietly waited for the bride and the groom. Suddenly, the sound of the marching horses and the festive drumbeats drifted into their ears. The guests turned their heads to the entrance and saw the groom, Alaric, entering the venue with his family. They were dressed in formal clothes to fit the occasion, but Alaric's attire stood out from the rest. He wore a golden coat adorned with shiny jewelry over his red tunic and a pair of crimson-colored tight-fitting pants. For his shoes, he chose a pair of slightly pointy Krakows which had become trendy recently among the younger aristocrats. Under the heated gazes of the crowd, Alaric calmly walked along the aisle with his family, but he was actually feeling incredibly nervous deep inside. Chapter 300, Husband and Wife. Alaric saw the bishop, Amari Anton, smiling at him at the altar. He smiled back in response and controlled his breathing to calm his nerves. He couldn't afford to embarrass himself in front of this crowd. As soon as he stepped onto the altar, Amari gave him a gentle nod. Relax. Just act naturally. The bishop reminded him when he noticed Alaric's nervous eyes. With the bishop's keen senses, Alaric wasn't surprised that he had been discovered. Yes, Your Excellency. At this moment, the drumbeats abruptly stopped and the music became more intimate. Following this sudden change, the bride's entourage entered the venue. It was the members of House Paxley. The ones walking in front were Hershey with her father, Baron Nathan, acting as her escort. Hershey wore a bright red dress with golden crow patterns emblazoned with rare gemstones and expensive jewelry. On her head was a jade hairpin that primly hugged her hair into a neat style. Now in her wedding dress, Hershey exuded unmatched beauty that took everyone's breath away. She was like an ethereal fairy taking a stroll in the woods. Alaric stared intently at this beautiful woman and subconsciously let out a smile. As if sensing his gaze, Hershey stared back at him and smiled. No words were exchanged, but their eyes conveyed everything they wanted to say to each other. The crowd held their breaths as they watched the scene. The mutual connection between the bride and the groom affected them, making them smile unknowingly. The moment Hershey stepped beside him, Alaric whispered. You look perfect like always. Hershey blushed at his words. You too. You look amazing. Amari Anton pretended not to hear the little exchange between the two. He made a hand gesture to the crowd, a signal for them to rise in preparation for the recital of the religious scriptures. Seeing his signal, everyone rose from their seats. The bishop cleared his throat and recited the opening passage. Welcome family and friends. We are gathered here today to witness the Aru once said. The recital of the scriptures went on for almost 30 minutes. It was then followed with the exchange of vows between the bride and the groom. Alaric had prepared for 2 lifetimes for this very moment. He stared at Hershey with undisguised love as he said his promise. From the moment we first met, I already knew that you would become an important part of my life. He spoke the words he couldn't tell her in his past life. Each word and every sentence contained 2 lifetimes of longing and love. His sincere voice moved the crowd. They never thought that the swordsmanship genius would be this romantic. Some young ladies even cried, clearly swept by the atmosphere. Today, I give you my heart, my soul, and my everything. I will always. After Alaric's speech, it was finally Hershey's turn to speak. Her eyes were still glistening with tears, clearly moved by Alaric's promise. It was a fateful encounter. Hershey's voice trembled as she recited the opening words of her speech. I offer you my unwavering love and commitment. When she ended her speech, the crowd erupted into applause and cheers. For the next part, the bride and the groom exchanged rings. This was a symbolic gesture to represent the vows that they had exchanged today. It was a symbol of bond that would constantly remind them of the promises they made. After exchanging wedding rings, a special ceremony followed. It was the candle-lighting ceremony which would signify the union of the two houses. The crowd watched with great anticipation as the members of House Paxley and House Silversword lit the candles. Soon, the wedding venue was illuminated with flickering crimson light from these special candles. Baron Nathan laughed heartily as he shook hands with Lucas. Ha ha ha. Please take care of us from now on, my lord. Nathan beamed at Lucas. The latter smiled and nodded. Naturally. We are family now, so it is our responsibility to take care of each other. The two barons exchanged words under the heated gazes of the crowd. This ceremony marked the beginning of a strong friendship and alliance between the houses. Most of the northern houses' representatives were already thinking about how they would pledge their support to the two houses. After the candle-lighting ceremony, Amari Anton gestured to the crowd to keep quiet with a raise of his hand. The old bishop swept his gaze at the guests and announced with a smile. I now pronounce you husband and wife. As soon as he made this announcement, the audience eagerly clapped their hands and cheered to show their support for the new couple. Congratulations, Lady Hershey. Congratulations, Lord Alaric. Congratulations to the new couple. May you be blessed with many fortunes and success. Amari Anton raised his hand once more. He then glanced at the couple and smiled as he said, You may now kiss the bride. Hearing this, Hershey blushed as she stared at the man before her. She had been dreaming of this moment and it had finally happened. Looking at her emotional expression, Alaric held her hands, squeezing them lightly to calm her nerves. He then hugged her and brought his face closer to her to plunge a passionate kiss on her cherry-red lips. Hershey closed her eyes and drowned herself in the kiss. The crowd cheered once more. Some even made teasing noises at the couple. A minute went by just like that, but the couple didn't seem to have the intention to separate from each other, so Amari faked a cough to remind them about the situation. Hershey shyly pulled her head while staring straight into Alaric's eyes. You are mine now, Alaric whispered in a cheeky tone. Amen. Hershey hummed in response, feeling incredibly sweet and excited. In the next moment, the couple walked hand in hand along the aisle to greet the important guests. Congratulations, Lord Alaric and Lady Hershey. Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you, everyone.